Welcome to Armchair Expert, Experts on Expert. I'm Dan Parker Randall, and I'm joined by Gretchen Mulrooney.
Oh, my
Hi.
God. You really pulled those out of your ass.
They felt right coming out. They surprised me.
Yeah, I liked that.
I mean, part of it was influenced by our guest.
Of course.
Gretchen Rubin.
Yeah.
She's a best-selling author, a podcaster, and a speaker, and she has a flurry of different great books. Outer Order, Inner Calm, The Four Tendencies, Better Than Before, Happier at Home, The Happiness Project. By now, it would occur to you that she specializes in happiness.
She does.
She's fascinated with what makes people happy. She studied every kind of angle of it.
Yeah.
And she has a new book out right now called Life in Five Senses, How Exploring the Senses Got Me Out of My Head and Into the World. She also has a podcast called Happier with Gretchen Rubin. And I just enjoyed the shit out of Gretchen.
I did too. She was super fun. She's so smart. And, spoiler, she clerked for a Supreme Court justice. That is a big deal.
That's a big boy. That's a daddy long legs.
That is a daddy long
That's a textbook long legs right there. But she was all kinds of playful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We liked her.
Anyone that comes in here and tussles with us, plays around, gets on the floor, wrestles a little bit,
Yeah.
I'm going to love.
She's wearing a really pretty green dress.
You know who was a little wrestler? Is Nicholas Braun. I listened to 15.
playful.
That's where I heard this thing that you'll hear us argue about in the fact check, whether or not it was said.
Oh,
in fact,
wait.
now might be the place for me to play it.
Let's tell people right now.
Okay.
Let's just warn them.
Yeah. Skip the fact check.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was like Armchair Anonymous.
No, I don't like that for fact checks.
okay.
Listen to it, but
But get comfortable.
but no, it is unedited, and
They'll know
that's-
that because we talk a lot about that fact.
I just want them
within
to
it.
be prepared going in.
You want them to lower their expectations
Yeah.
a little bit. Yeah, okay. Wonderful. Well, you don't have to lower your expectations for Gretchen Rubin. She was a blast. Please enjoy Gretchen Rubin.
He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert.
Thank you so much for your patience. We had a pretty wild day, and I fell behind, but I wanted to be prepared, so I appreciate it so much. I hope you weren't too uncomfortable.
Oh, no, I have total studio envy. So I was
Oh, you
checking
do? Where do you record yours?
in my little home office. It's just tiny, and this is such a fun vibe.
Yours is successful. I think you could probably invest in an upgrade.
But I live in New York City, so
Yeah.
it's just so nice to be able to do it in my home office. But I definitely do not have room for two big, comfortable recliners. I want even just the chairs.
This is what we would call a flex.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
young people would call a flex. To be able to have two lazy boys is the
It's pretty
pose.
cool.
I've always wanted to have a treadmill desk. I gave my sister a treadmill desk because I couldn't get one because my office is too small.
And you do the show with your sister as
I
well?
do, yeah.
And she's a very successful writer.
She's a TV writer, and showrunner.
The Shield for many, many years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
amazing.
And now she's doing Fantasy Island for Fox.
That's a series.
Yeah.
Because they also did a movie a minute
Yes,
ago.
no, this is now the series.
I presume she lives in LA.
She does. She lives in Encino.
And when you're in town, do you stay with her?
I did. I just came from her house.
And do you have moments in the morning where you're reminded of being children?
Oh, that's fun.
Oh, that's interesting.
My cousins who I spent every summer with, Mandy and Kelly, I love them so much. They came out and visited about 2 months ago. And my cousin Kelly, the older sister, was trying to get out of the seat in our basement. And she really was too far reclining. She couldn't. And I was helping her. And all this stuff was happening. And Mandy was watching. And then right as Kelly gave it the like 1, 2, 3, and her butt cheeks were totally hanging out. And right as she stands up, Mandy goes, I started laughing. I mean,
Yeah.
we were all 8 years old.
Right,
Like, that's
right, right.
exactly what was happening when we were 8, making fart noises. Someone was embarrassed. Everyone's laughing. I time traveled for a minute.
so
It was so
fun.
lovely.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's great. You know, because there is a kind of intimacy with your family that's very different. My sister's more just that I can walk into her closet and take something, or I can open up the fridge and take something, or tell her your office is really messy. I want to clean it up. You know,
There's no boundaries.
Yes, there's an ease there. Yeah,
It's
for sure.
liberating to be with someone that has no boundaries
Yeah.
as your family.
But
Exactly.
then working with that person when there are no boundaries can get tricky.
I love working with my sister.
Is she older or younger?
She's 5 years younger. It was funny because when we started, somebody said, well, you should really highlight your conflicts because people are interested in conflicts. And I was like, well, that's a problem because I have fewer conflicts with my sister probably than any other person in my life.
Wow.
Yes, but I think it really depends on the sibling. But for us, it works really, really well.
It is interesting what people will map onto something. Like you need conflict. That's just kind of a funny
But
note.
we've said that.
What I realize is we don't have conflict, but we have differences. You see things differently, but you don't have to have
Fights every
combative.
day.
Yeah.
Although we do have dust ups, to be totally honest, we have some dust ups. We've had a couple therapists listen to our troubles and advise
We've
us.
done it. We've done all
We've done
that.
it all, but I don't think that's the part that makes the show.
No,
good.
no.
The,
right.
the difference is challenging is one thing, but conflict, I guess, is a little different. So you're 5 years older. Were you close growing up? I have that gap with my brother, and it can be insurmountable at times. I mean, when you're in 6th grade and she's in 1st grade, that's a big.
Right. When we were younger, we weren't as close, and we've become closer and closer as we've gotten older. Because at a certain point, you just merge together, and you're just both adults.
You're just both old.
You're both old.
At some
And
point.
neither of us thought we would be writers as children, but then we sort of ended up in similar fields. So, especially when we were younger, we weren't close. And then when I was in college and she was in high school, we got closer. And then as adults, we got closer.
And you obviously were going to be in law. I presume you got a law degree.
Yeah, but it wasn't obvious. It was definitely like I don't know what else to do,
Let's eat up some time
Yeah,
here.
yeah. It's a good option. I can always change my mind later. It's a great
Yeah.
education. I'm good at research and writing.
What was she thinking she was going to do?
Well, right after college, she ended up going to a company that created sort of pulp fiction for YA. Like, I think she wrote, what was that series? There were like 100 of them.
Twilight.
No, earlier than that. Anyway, so she did
Babysitter's Club.
No, not that, but in that field. But
Okay.
anyway, she got into that pretty quickly and sort of got steering towards writing. She was a writer before I was. And I think seeing her example helped me make the switch into writing because it felt much more possible.
Well, you had the arrogance of the older sibling, which is like, well, if she can do it, I guess I can do it, right?
Yeah.
I think everything I do, my brother's like, yeah, duh, I would have done that too if I
Right.
just would have moved to LA. I mean, if he can do it, clearly I can. We grew up in the same house.
Yeah.
Now, Kansas City, in the same era I grew up, I think, and Detroit, it's bullseye Midwest. When you got to Yale, were you like, I'm home, or did you have culture shock?
I felt like I'm home.
You're like, I belonged here. I should have grown up here.
Well, I don't know that I felt like I belonged there because I was pretty intimidated, but I felt like this is where I want to be. I didn't feel like, oh, I'm a fish out of water.
So you got a law degree, and then this interests me greatly because I don't have any idea what they do, but you clerked for a U.S. Supreme Court.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
Sandra
Day
Day O'Connor.
Yeah.
Sandra Day O'Connor.
Wow.
Yeah.
What does a clerk do? Are you in the courtroom? Are you watching all this stuff? What's the day of a clerk?
So typically you do it for just a year. You come in as sort of like one of 30 odd young lawyers and you prepare memos for the justices. So there'll be just huge amounts of materials. So you summarize it and present, here are the arguments for, here are the arguments against, to sort of help them sort through all the briefs that they have. And yeah, you do get to watch, and there's like a special place behind a grill. It's very dramatic where you sit and you can watch the arguments.
Oh, wow.
Oh, no kidding.
Uh-huh. And one of the things that's interesting is no one is supposed to be able to overhear what the clerks are talking about for fear that that would give them insight into what the justices are thinking. So like in the lunchroom, you had to sit in a special area so that
Oh.
nobody could come and eavesdrop on your conversation.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of makes sense. The decisions they make end up moving markets. They
Yes,
end
Yeah,
up-
for sure.
What a cool, weird behind the curtain.
It is. I feel like it's one of the great experiences of my life was getting to
Yeah.
do that.
Were they very long days? Were you like young and working
Yeah.
around the clock and they call you and treat you like a gopher?
No, they're very respectful of their clerks. It's a very cool model where they have reunions of your clerks. It's a very kind of mentor-mentee. All judges and clerks. It's a very respectful relationship. I'm surprised other professions don't have it because it's a really powerful thing. You feel like an immediate comradeship with anybody who's clerked for your judge or your justice. It's really very cool. So yeah, you work really hard. Of course, it's changed tremendously since I did it. It was a very respectful, very formal.
You're not saying is it's so hard to get those positions. It's extremely hard. My aunt would say that, and it has.
I turned a few down, so I
Oh my
disagree.
God.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
I wasn't even.
Good for-
I was in
who?
I was in anthropology. I forgot what I majored in. I said archaeology. In that year, were there any really headliney cases that happened?
One of them was VMI, which was about the Virginia Military Institute, which was whether it had to admit women.
Oh, but separate from the whole gauntlet episode that also happened. That's separate from that.
Yeah.
Okay. And obviously they had to admit women. Was that the outcome? Does the Supreme Court interest you in general, and have you listened to More Perfect, that podcast?
I haven't listened to it, and I read about it, but I don't follow it that closely, I have to say now, from a legal perspective.
Clearly, in the short time since you were there, it has pretty radically evolved. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Would you say for the better or the worse? To me, it feels like for the worse.
Yes,
Too.
for the worse.
Yeah.
For the worse,
Thank
yeah.
you.
It's so political.
It's kind of runaway. It's weird because you see what's happening in Israel, and of course that sounds very totalitarian and everything. But at the same time, there does need to be some little course correction on the amount of power, I feel like. Now it's like, well, who cares about the presidency? It's all about which judge you appoint for the next 30 years. I've been trying to ensnare you in a political conversation, which is funny because
I'll
we're
be
apolitical.
there.
There's
I
kind
mean-
of, working on the Supreme Court, you're sort of very trained.
to not.
Yeah.
To not ever speak on it, like your ex-special forces or something.
CIA.
That's how I feel. Certainly not all of them feel like it, but I think I can.
Now
feel
we
like
really
it.
want to.
There's some
No,
loose
no,
lips
no.
floating out
Yeah.
there, sinking ships. Generally, when we have a professor on from the social scientists, I think almost more than their work am I interested in is why they ended up doing the work they did and how much actual self-exploration they do in even answering that question. Some people, shockingly, it's never even crossed their mind why they honed in on biomechanics of the right arm. That doesn't make you curious. Why on earth were you drawn to that? So I
Right.
guess my first thought would be, what led you to this space, the happiness space? You have a podcast about happiness. You have 4 best-selling books, millions of copies, all on the topic of happiness. What led you to that?
And I know exactly the minute when it happened. I had already switched to being a writer from being a lawyer, so I had written 3 books, and I was just finishing a biography of JFK. So I had kind of some open time because I'd finished that book, but it hadn't been published yet, and I was stuck in a city bus in the pouring rain. We were inching forward. I had nothing to do, so I was just staring out the window. At that point, I rarely kind of asked myself big questions. So I asked myself this rhetorical question: what do I want from life anyway? And I thought, I want to be happy. And I thought, I say I want to be happy, but I don't spend 1 minute thinking, am I happy? Could I be happier? What does it mean to be happy? Can you even make yourself happier? And I thought, I should do a happiness project. And that's the words that I thought. And so the next day I went out to the library and started researching, which is something I do all the time. I will get intensely interested in something and I'll go and do a ton of research. So I got this huge stack of books and I was researching, and it was so fascinating.
Can I ask what year this was?
Oh, I don't know. Time has lost all meaning. What year was that? I don't know.
I asked because I'm trying to think where in the movement. All of a sudden, this started surfacing about 12 years ago. There started to be documentaries.
No,
Shadyac made one. There was a great book, Happy, whatever, I got it. It was a new genre.
Well, it was going to be like 13 or 14 because I think the Happiness Project recently had its 10th anniversary. That was like a year or 2 ago, so it would have been a year or 2 before that. So I think I was part of that. As often happens, you're part of like a thing.
Simultaneous,
And you don't even
independent
know it. You're
discovery.
part of the zeitgeist. There's so much science. There's philosophy. There's literature, memoirs, biographies, autobiographies. There's just so much material. And the more I learned about it, then I wanted to try everything. And then finally I thought, well, maybe this should be my next book project.
Yes.
So I wrote the Happiness Project. And after that, it's just such a fascinating field that everything I've done since, like Better Than Before, was about habits. Because if you're talking about happiness, you quickly start talking about habits. Because so often people are like, well, I know I'd be happier if I exercised, but I don't. So that's really a habit problem, not a happiness problem.
Right.
And then doing that, I was like, ooh, but I see there are these 4 distinct types of people when it comes to habit formation. So I'll write a book about that. And then I wrote a book about home because it's like, it's hard to be happy if you're not happy at home. And then my new book, Life in 5 Senses, is all about connecting with the 5 senses because I realized that's really important to happiness, getting this contact with the moment and like this direct, vivid connection to the world and to other people was this thing that I'd been ignoring. So I keep going deeper and deeper and deeper into it.
And are you approaching a kind of global recognition that, I guess the most popular term for it would be like the hedonic treadmill?
Yeah.
That probably implicit in all of these happiness pursuits is novelty. So even if you write a book about 5 habits, well, once we've done those, they will work. And then you too will become accustomed to them like any other thing. Your body is perfect at reaching homeostasis, and you will become numb to the things that worked, and then you add new things. I almost wonder if an approach or a view of happiness at this point should be, it's going to be an ever-evolving thing that you have to regularly introduce new things and then probably rediscover old things, because the nature of the body is complacency. The nature of our spirit is complacency, and all things, even if you do your 5 senses regularly, at some point,
you might return to your first book and find great joy. Is that fair, do you think, or no?
I think that's a very profound point, and it's interesting because I think it might be more true of some things you would do than others. For instance, if you had to pick one thing that's the key to happiness, like one secret to happiness, it would be relationships with other people. So anything that deepens your relationships or broadens your relationships is going to make you happy. That's kind of ever novel on its own. So the idea I want to deepen my relationships is the same, but those people would be changing, the nature of the connection would be changing. But let's say you'd say, okay, exercise is something that makes people happier. Well, you could be like, well, maybe you're somebody like me who likes to do the same thing over and over for years, and I love that. But then other people are like, man, I got to change it up. And so then it might be individual differences because some people are very drawn to repetition like me. Some people need constant novelty, like not even 2 years, then 2 years. Some might be like, I do a different workout every day. I need lots of novelty. Or like, I want to train for this, but then I'm done with that. Now I'm going to do this. And so it might be self-knowledge where you have to think, how much do I need to change it up? How much do I need to bring that into my larger aims? Because the larger aims might stay the same, which is exercise, connection, energy, creativity, or whatever.
I think that's a great point, that it's going to be inherently individualistic in the same way that I get frustrated with parenting books because I find it laughable that there would be one prescription for, quote, children, and I only have two, and they're opposites.
100%.
Yeah, so we too are unique and probably will respond differently. I too love repetition. There are certain exercises, if I jog, my nature is I must go a little bit further every day, right? Like I'm endlessly challenging and that becomes untenable. And I recognize that's not an exercise for me because I'll drive myself nuts. So I am curious how the 4 personality types filed into this topic.
Okay, you want to hear about the 4?
I do, yeah, I would love to.
So you can take a quiz if you go to GretchenRubin.com/quiz.
We love taking quizzes.
We do. I started it today, but
Oh,
I
you did?
got tripped up on a couple of the questions, so I stopped.
Okay, well, I'll do a personal reading for you right now.
great.
Yeah, and I got a 5 senses quiz. I love a quiz. Okay, so I'll just briefly describe these. Once you know them, they're everywhere. We could do Games of Thrones characters. You could do movie. I mean, they're everywhere. So I'll tell you these 4. What this is looking at is something that sounds very boring, but it turns out to be really interesting, which is how you respond to expectations. So all of us face 2 kinds of expectations. Outer expectations, like a work deadline, and inner expectations, like I want to go for a run. I want to keep a New Year's resolution. So this is looking at, do you meet expectations or do you resist expectations? So there are upholders, questioners, obligers, and rebels. Upholders readily meet outer and inner expectations. So they meet the work deadline, they keep the New Year's resolution without much fuss. They want to know what other people expect from them, but their expectations for themselves are just as important. So their motto is, discipline is my freedom. Then there are questioners. Questioners question all expectations. They'll do it if they think it makes sense. So they need reasons, justifications. They resist anything arbitrary. They need to know, they need to know
You just figured out which one I am.
Well, there's some others.
Okay, hold on. Yeah, wait. So they're making everything an inner expectation. If something meets their inner standard, if it makes good sense, they'll do it no problem. If it fails their inner standard, they will push back. Their motto is, I'll comply if you convince me why. Then there are obligers. Obligers readily meet outer expectations, but they struggle to meet inner expectations. These are the people who say, I can always keep my promises to other people. Why don't I keep my promises to myself? They're people who need self-care. They're people who are told, like, you need to make yourself a priority. Obligers are great at coming through for other people, but to meet their expectations for themselves, they have to have outer accountability. If they want to read more, they have to join a book group. If they want to exercise more, they have to work out with a trainer or work out with a friend who's going to be angry if they don't show up. For both men and women, it is the biggest tendency of all 4.
Yeah,
and so,
you regularly see people thriving at their job.
Yes.
Especially in America, of course, where we prioritize it so much. But you see people that are just acing their career, and that's it. Anything personal, any hobbies.
This is the thing. They don't understand that what they need is outer accountability. That's kind of a simple solution for them. So their motto is, you can count on me and I'm counting on you to count on me. And then the rebel is the final one. So rebels resist all expectations, outer and inner alike. They want to do what they want to do in their own way, in their own time. They can do anything they want to do, anything they choose to do. But if you ask or tell them to do something, they are very likely to resist. And typically, they don't even tell themselves what to do. Like, they don't sign up for a 10 a.m. woodworking class on Saturday because they think, I don't know what I want to do on Saturday. And just the fact that somebody's going to expect me to show up is going to bug me. So their motto is, you can't make me, and neither can I.
I feel like there's a little bit of overlap between 2 and 4, though.
Oh, they all overlap. So, like, if you're a questioner, you overlap with upholder because you both meet inner expectations, but you also overlap with rebel because you both resist outer expectations. So it's a perfectly interlocking system.
I got you. Because I definitely identify with 2 and 4 tremendously.
I think you are.
Oh,
those
so what
two.
do you
Do you think more of one than the other?
So I'm struggling with this, right? Because I think I'd probably be in that third one that most people are
Obliger.
in. But I also am really good at self-care, and I do think I'm good at giving myself what I need. So would I be the first?
And
So maybe you're
you're
the
okay
first.
saying no, too. You don't need to go to the party. Some you'll leave early. Like, you
Yeah.
have a lot of things that aren't people-pleasery.
Do you feel like you can meet your promises to yourself?
Yes, and I don't know.
Well, you could be an upholder who tips to obliger, so that it's
Oh, maybe it's that.
you're basically an upholder, but you feel the weight of outer expectations pretty strongly.
I definitely am far more likely to meet an outside expectation than an internal one.
Well,
I'm
that's
not
the-
good at resolutions.
That's a great question. How do you feel about New Year's resolutions?
I make them, and then I'm very bad at it.
Then I think you're an obliger.
Okay, but then I love a massage, and I'll and I'll get one regularly.
Yeah. It's not that obligers can't do that. They just do much better with outer accountability.
The obliger's Kristen to a T. Like, she doesn't let anyone else down. Anyone can call her and ask for a favor, and she immediately says yes. I'm immediately like, I don't know if that's a doable thing. Have you thought about whether you can execute this? Even if I
Right,
help,
right.
like, I start going through, like, is this
Right.
even achievable before
Right.
we all waste our time
Right.
trying to do it? Like, we first got to acknowledge whether or not this can be done. I recognize that I'm very hard to live with because I just won't go along with
that feels
anything.
Nuanced, right? Like, because hers is saying yes to everything. To me is different than what you say yes to, you show up for and you produce.
Well, she has an impossibly high conversion rate. She's raising money for the schools. She's on the talent thing. She's doing 55 things and a huge job and doing 20 favors a week for people.
I'll tell you something that sometimes happens to obligers. So when expectations become too intense, especially like in one area, like you have a boss who just keeps assigning you more and more and more. If obliger starts feeling ignored, taken advantage of, exploited, they sometimes have obliger-rebellion, which is when they snap and they say, this I will not do. And it could be something funny like, I'm just not going to answer your emails for 2 weeks. Or it can be something like, I'm quitting this job right now today. Or we're going to get a divorce. Or I'm going to cut off a 25-year friendship because it's too much. It's over. And so if you feel that, because obligers do, they come through, and sometimes it's like the balloon bursts.
break.
It feels
Yeah.
like
They break.
they're getting taken advantage
Well, they are
of.
being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
100% they think they are. But upholders, questioners, rebels, we all go to the obligers because they're the ones that are most likely to say yes.
Yeah.
Okay, but so Dax, what do you think you are? So you think you're either a questioner or a rebel?
Yeah. More questioner than
Okay.
rebel because I do have a ton of personal goals. I love New Year's resolutions. I meet most of them.
From listening to the show, I think you are a questioner.
Okay.
That was my impression. I
And
couldn't
what are
tell
you-
with
and-
you,
and
Monica.
Gretchen, what
I
are
couldn't
you?
tell.
Hard.
I'm an upholder, which is funny because I remember when I was writing my book about habits, Better Than Before, I was talking to somebody who I now know is a rebel. At the time, I didn't know because I hadn't made up the 4 tendencies yet. And I told her I was writing a book about habits. I love the idea of habits. To me, it's like a super juicy topic. And she literally took a step back from me in revulsion. And she's like, why would you want to write about such an awful subject? Because she didn't like the idea of habits, right? Some rebels do like the idea of habits, but some do not because they want the novelty and they don't want to feel chained.
And there's legitimate criticism of the achieving economy, the American capitalist success, how we measure it, the endless need to be accomplishing things. There's legitimate criticism of that whole process that we've undertaken. I think it's worth questioning.
But it's funny because like with upholders are also really good at things like relaxing and taking time for themselves because they're just like, you know what? I have to leave at 6 every day because I've decided I need to be home at 6, and then they'll just do it. Some of them don't even have very high expectations. Some are kind of slackers, but what expectations they have, they meet. Like some people think, well, all creative people must be rebels. We don't know anything about somebody's creativity from their tendency or how extroverted they are, or how adventurous they are, even how analytical they are.
Nothing over indexes. There's no fun.
I think if I had big data, maybe I could tell. Like you could be super analytical and be an obliger because
Yeah.
it's not about your thinking. It's about how you meet expectations. So it's this very narrow thing. So it's
Yeah.
interesting. It doesn't lend itself to a lot of other associations that you might think would come with it. It's
Yeah, I
just
guess
how
that's
you
sort
meet
of what I was saying. It's like people pleasing seems separate
Yes.
from this.
Yes, that's a very subtle point because some people think the explanation for their behavior is that they're people pleasing. I'm like, no, it's just that you're meeting outer expectations. Some obligers don't care about other people at all, but they'll only do something if they're going to get in trouble. It's a very, very narrow thing, but it's helpful. Like if you want to know about how to change your habits or you want to know why your two children are so different, you're like, well, if they're different tendencies,
Yeah.
you might be doing the same thing as a parent, but they're responding completely differently.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah. No, one of our kids needs to know every single detail to the end of details and then doesn't believe you that there's not more details. She needs the full lay of the land before she even wants to move forward. And I can
Yeah.
very much relate to that.
That's very questioner. Interesting. Why? I need to know this makes sense. I need to know that this has all been
So-
thought through.
Here's a question for you. Do you think that is a nature or a nurture thing?
I think it's genetically determined. I think it's part of the hardwiring that you bring in. A lot of people have it really early.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Interesting.
yes, I will say it seems at least quite plausible and logical that in a childhood full of deceptive adults that you couldn't count on, you didn't have the luxury of not getting all the details. You had to know what everyone's motives were. You had to be able to foresee manipulation around the corner, or you would get gobbled up by it. I do feel like it could be an acquired response to lots of deception.
It's absolutely true that with time and experience, it affects how your tendency comes out. But I wonder if a different tendency would respond from that tendency's own way to that circumstance.
That's why we need more identical twin lab rats.
That's right. Or,
Yeah.
let's unleash them on the world. Yeah, if you're in North Korea and you're a questioner, you're not going to go around asking people questions. But you're in Silicon Valley, it's like this is your greatest strength because people are like, look at this person
Yeah.
who's so data driven. Or some obligers are like, I'm so good at meeting other people's expectations, but I let myself down. I feel terrible about it. And then I've talked to people who are like, I give 110% to my clients. I'm so hardcore. I'm the best salesman there is. Like, do you think I have time to exercise? No way, because I'm there for my clients. So they really laud themselves for the very same trait. So I think you're exactly right that context will affect how it comes out and how you understand what's going on.
Yeah.
But I feel like deep down it's still the same thing at play.
Yeah. And again, I think those are always the most pointless question. Is
Yeah,
it nature
because-
versus nurture? Because culture is
Yes.
nature now.
Yes.
They both
We are
all
nature.
reverse.
Yeah. Yes.
We have changed our biology
Yeah.
through our culture. I will say that I was scanning through some of your other books and I was watching you on Soul, Oprah's program. Is it overwhelming to sit down with Oprah? Were you terrified or were you comfortable?
It's kind of out of body experience because I'm like, you're so much like Oprah. It's kind of uncanny. But you know what somebody told me? A friend of mine had done it before and I called for advice and she said, she's so good at her job. Often when you're being interviewed, you kind of have to steer it. You just like let her do it
100%.
and just try to be there in the conversation. And I literally cannot remember one thing. It was like I had no ability to form a short-term memory. I can't remember it.
And did the time travel really curiously? Like for you, did it feel like 2 seconds?
No, it felt like a week. It felt like
it felt like a
so
week.
much time went by. Like I was like,
Oh.
I'm amazed it's the same day.
Wow.
Okay. I'm fascinated with the flexibility of time.
Yes. It's kind of like with the five senses, how we all are living in different universes without realizing it, but you're exactly right.
Yes.
Like, yes. And the way that if things are novel, the time seems to slow down.
Yes.
And habit, I love habits, but they speed time.
Yes. Routines speed time
They
up.
speed time and they speed days, and you
Yeah.
have to shake it up. It's like the pandemic, you know?
Yeah.
It went so fast because every day was the same.
I imagine you and I have the same struggles. So I'm a creature of habit. I'll eat the same meal or I
Oh.
eat 3 meals all week long.
Yes.
I'm most comfortable doing that. I don't want to spend time thinking about those
No.
kinds of things. I have all these things I want to do. But yeah, you look up and you're like, because I journal every morning. So I write the date every morning. And almost every morning I'm shook. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it fucks me up. And I do know it's because of my routines. And if
Yes.
I go on vacation, obviously, the first 4 days feel like 2 weeks. And it's all because of the novel stuff.
Right. Well, and like with your podcast, don't you remember like the first 6 months? It's like you can remember every single episode and like each one. And then as you get, it's the brain being efficient. You know, it's like making room for other stuff. Even for people like us who maybe aren't that drawn to novelty, I force myself to
Me
do
too.
things like travel.
You're mixed messages on that.
Because I have wanderlust.
Yeah.
But I
like
have
massive wanderlust.
massive wanderlust for sure.
But also with your work, isn't it really different all the time? It feels
Yeah,
like.
every person you talk to is different.
But these can get into a routine. I mean, we've done 600 and some
Yeah.
of these interviews, and you know, they definitely operate now out of the subconscious. Like our
Yes.
bodies have learned how to do this without
Right.
giving it much thought, which is great. You feel guilty a little bit. But back to the novelty thing. Yes, I'll force myself. I'll be about to turn right out of my driveway and I'll go, just turn left. Because in LA, you could take 80 ways to any given spot if you chose to. And I kind of make myself do that.
The research shows that people who do novel things are happier, even if it's things like taking a different route through a neighborhood or trying a different diner. But I do think there's a joy in repetition. I mean,
Yeah.
for my book, I go to the Met every single day. And part of it was because I love doing something every single day. You have to think about the trade-offs. And also, the things that go wrong often make the best memories. So it's like if all of a sudden the ceiling caved in, we
Yeah.
would be like, oh, this is a disaster. But then it would probably be this hilarious thing that
Might
would
be the biggest episode of the year.
Right, it would draw us closer together,
Yeah.
and you guys would laugh about it forever.
if you're more of an anxious personality, though, I feel like you like repetition.
Because it's comforting.
Exactly.
Predictable.
Yeah.
As opposed to like taking a left, no. Because then I'm just like, I'm lost. And then that gives me anxiety as opposed to, oh, look how cool these houses are. I'm just like, how am I going to get there?
But see, I think your point is exactly back to Dax, your point before, which is everybody's different. If I had to say what is the biggest mistake people make in this sort of area of happiness, it's like thinking that there's one best way or one right way, or research shows that it's always better, because what you should say is it's interesting to know kind of what the research is, but knowing myself,
Yeah.
knowing when I succeed, knowing how to manage my time, my energy, my moods. What do I know works for me? And if it's like, you know what? Driving in LA is stressful. I want to take exactly the same route. I don't want to be rethinking it. That's not going to wake me up in an interesting way.
Yeah.
Whereas for somebody else, they're like, I live in this big, beautiful city. There are all these neighborhoods to discover. Every day can be different. It can be an adventure. Who's right? Who's wrong?
I went up a
Nobody.
street yesterday. I've lived across the street from it for 17 years. Went to a barbecue, had to take a street I haven't been up. Drove by this super famous Frank Lloyd Wright house, maybe the Sowden House or some enormous with the Mayan stone relief
Oh, yeah, I've
thing.
seen pictures of
Yo,
that.
yeah, and I just saw it in fucking real life. I've seen it in pictures probably 300 times.
And it's
all
in your
of a sudden,
neighborhood.
I'm turning left and I'm like, oh my God, there it is. And it's glorious. It like over delivers. Yeah, it's
Wow.
a half mile up the
Oh
street.
my gosh.
And I was titillated by the experience.
The world has so much to offer.
Yes.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
Okay, so let's get into, we've danced around your previous books. I do just want to state, just for the record, that two things that you honed in on previous books, which I really love and are my religion, are is you can act your way into feeling different as
Yes.
opposed to feeling your way into acting different, which I think
Yes.
is key. It's a very AA thing.
And it's also easier because it's much easier to control your conscious actions than to try to control your thoughts.
Yeah, you can't go,
Yeah.
I want to feel happy in 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Unless you have drugs in your hand. You can't do it. But
Right.
you can stand up and walk 20 feet.
Exactly. Or you can listen to an upbeat song, or you can call a friend, or you can go take a walk to the Frank Lloyd Wright house. So yeah, you can go from the outside in, 100%.
And I remember in a psych class in college learning that these two scientists were trying to document and catalog every single position the face could go in. I don't know if you've seen this
Is
work.
this like Paul Ekman type thing?
Probably. It's very famous. This is
Okay.
like Stanford experience, marshmallow.
Oh, yeah.
This is pretty well known social science stuff. But in the process of doing it, what they discovered is they were going to like say start tracking all of the upset faces. So they were like doing frowns and they physically have to move their faces, and there's something recording the images, and they're trying to really figure out what is the full capacity of the nonverbal facial expressions. And what they accidentally discovered is that when they force themselves to laugh,
they felt
Yeah.
elated.
Okay, so here's a bunch of examples of that. One is if they tell people to hold a pencil between their nose and their upper lip, it makes people happier because they're making like a fake smile without
What?
knowing it.
No.
Yeah. People who have had Botox experience lower levels of anger because they can't make angry faces.
Whoa.
And I had a thing where my eyes were watering. They didn't hurt, but they were just watering. I had some kind of like weird thing. And I felt sad.
Sure.
Because I was like, oh, I'm just like wiping away the tears. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I had like an eye condition. But your body's like, well, there's all this crying going on. Something must be wrong.
It was a discovery that it works both directions.
Yes.
Conventionally, it was that my emotions will make my
Yes.
face move in this way, but in fact, moving your face in that way can make your emotions
But so is
respond.
this why, like, the actor who played Tony Soprano?
Oh my God,
They were
yes.
saying it took such a
Gandolfini.
toll on him. Yes, toll on him. Is that because by acting out this anger all the time, you're making yourself go through these experiences? Or is acting partly controlling that outside in experience?
We've heard both. I think the best example would be from Handmaid's Tale.
Oh, Elizabeth
Elizabeth Moss, who we interviewed. And have you watched Handmaids?
No, I read
It
the
is
book a long
torture
time
porn.
ago. Yeah,
she
I
is
can't. I
crying and
can't.
being abused for now. She's going on year 6 of doing it. And we really said, like, that must take the biggest toll. And she's like, oh no, I'm so happy-go-lucky. Like, it's weird that I even play that role. And we're laughing on set
She can
before
totally
I did it. She can just
compartmentalize.
do it.
Interesting.
Well, for acting, for sure, there can be an outside-in approach with wardrobe or a walk.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Like adding these physical characteristics
Yes.
that then make you emotionally connect into a thing.
Well, people talk about that with like dress the part or cloak yourself in authority. We use these outside cues to help.
The other one I love that comes from your previous work is if you enjoy the process, the outcome becomes less important.
Yes.
This is the grand
so
goal in
true.
life for me. If I had a
Yeah.
singular goal, it's just
Enjoy the process.
Yeah, it's all it is.
Life is process.
You think it's results, but results are 1 second.
And so often in this world, you can't really even influence outcomes. But if you enjoy the process along the way, then you've had your fun, no matter what happens.
I think our first line of work teaches you that in a hurry. It's like everyone tries as hard on every movie. I've not been on a single movie set where people were phoning it in. Everyone's trying their very hardest. And through innumerable variables, plus when the release date is what happened that week. Did your movie come out on 9/11? I don't know.
Yeah.
What do we do about
just,
that?
Yeah, things you can't control.
Yeah.
Or people are in the mood for this. Or something
Mm-hmm.
happens in the news that makes it timely.
Yes.
Well, there's some intrinsic things we just don't have any control over. We were talking about this recently about a podcast we both really, really, really like and is doing really well. But it's very well produced, like very highly produced. And we were like, oh my God, like this makes us look idiotic.
We're
Like,
embarrassed,
We're doing
yeah.
10% of what these people are doing as far as putting out a show. Dax said that and I said, seems to be working though. Like whatever we're doing seems
Right.
to be working.
Sometimes you're on the good side of
Right,
Yes,
where it's like,
yes.
I guess there's something sort of intangible that seems to be translating or working. You can't control it.
It's sort of a corollary of enjoy the process is there are many ways for something to succeed. So there are many ways for a podcast to succeed. Just like there are many ways for a book to succeed, there are many ways for a vacation to succeed, there's many ways for an actor to succeed. Sometimes if you lock into one metric, you're like, well, did we succeed or fail? And it's like, well, there's lots of ways.
Yeah.
Have you cross-pollinated that with your 4 types? Because I would be real curious to see if the people who were more self-motivated for their own and not extrinsically motivated innately enjoy process more. Whereas I'd imagine an obliger, it's singularly about results.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, that
I
could be a
haven't-
fun exploration for you.
Okay, I
as
gotta
a-
write that down.
As
Okay,
a
yeah.
overlap books. You're
Interesting.
reading so many books, you can start like doing
Yeah,
mashups
yeah.
of genres.
I'm trying to think of like what kind of questions you could ask people that would get at that. That's a very thought-provoking angle to think about it.
Let's put it this way. I think the great movie directors are always making the movie they want to see and not anybody else. I don't think
Yes.
they give a single thought to anyone else. And then they get lucky. Either the thing they wanted to see was also broadly appealing or it wasn't.
That's how I pick book subjects. I'm always like, what's a book that I want to read, but I can't find it? And then I
Right.
write that book.
But then we're getting into the nuance of approval versus expectations. Because I think they're not doing it for approval, the good movie directors. They're doing it because they want to see this made. But they're probably executing on expectation.
Well, that's a good point. The
Like they
expectation
have
would
to
be
show
like,
up
yeah,
and they have to have this
raise
done by
the money
this day.
and I have
raise-
to please this person.
Exactly. But
But
it's not
sometimes
about
people just
approval.
can't do it. If somebody's saying, I have to be there on Monday, it's like, I just won't. You can't be the
Yeah.
boss of me. And that sometimes it's fine and sometimes it's not. I mean, so sometimes it does get in their way.
Right.
That one feels more pathological than the others.
Yeah,
to be
that
honest.
one
I see
sounds
people really
crazy.
getting in their way that way, especially in this town.
Well, I got to say the thing about rebels is I've come to appreciate the power of it. And I think we can all learn from it. I think they're the most misunderstood. The rebel tendency is the most different from the other three. And I think often people try to work with them in counterproductive ways. And so rebels are like, if you just get out of my way and let me do this in my own time, I'll get it done. But if you're like on my case,
But
I'm
is that
going to resist.
the real world? How could that person ever be your employee, ever?
Well, listen, no, I'm dealing with it right now. My wife is about to do a show. She's about to shoot a pilot. They're looking at directors. I have not directed in a while because I do this and I don't want to direct. And it's been lightly joked about 7 or 8 times from the producers, like, if you want to jump on this, we sure wouldn't mind having you. And I've literally had the thought, if I never had to talk to any of you guys and you let me show up and direct this without having to come convince you after you've already asked me to, there's a world in which I would do it. But I simply can't go try to win or earn a job you've asked me to do. I don't want to have to go play the pageantry part of it. And that sounds so arrogant, but I just really would choose not to do something if it was going to be the jump through hoops.
So with
version.
something like this, could you say something like, if you just want to write me an offer in an email, I'll consider it, but I'm not going to have meetings about it?
I couldn't because I don't have enough leverage to.
Okay.
If I were bigger, I probably could.
So they're inviting you to apply. They're not saying we're offering you.
No, this is how show business works. They're
Right.
like, we gotta have him. Will he do it? And then the person goes, yes. And they go like, okay, we need to see him read next to so-and-so. It's
Right.
like, well, no, you just said, yes. So it's
I
pretty
get it.
common.
Yeah.
That part I get. That's annoying. But then what I know about you is if they just straight up offered, if you said yes, you'd still have an issue when you got there if producers were like, hey, can you try to also get it from this angle? Like, you want no.
Well, let's be clear. Now you're inside of a personal history moment.
Okay, good.
Yes, this happened.
This happened. They lost a director on a commercial my wife was in. They asked me to come in and do it. I said, yes, literally as a favor. I'm going to be uncredited and I don't want to get paid. But I'll finish it because she needs it to
Right.
get finished.
Right. So it's a favor.
And I was
essentially.
not anticipating that there would be ad executives in New York who know nothing about directing on a Zoom call barking orders to Monica, who then had to tell them to me. Now, listen, I have more respect for a producer of a TV show and the writers. So no, if the writers said they wanted X, Y, or Z, or the creator of the show, I would 1,000% want to be collaborative. An ad exec who didn't write the spot in New York telling me where the flowers
Sure.
should be, fuck you, that's
Right.
what happened.
Right. But like, that's the reality of the world. It's a commercial and that happens. So to me, when those things come up, I don't think you're generally a rebel, but if we're talking about these rebels, that would be impossible for me to work with.
It's funny. I bet you have compartments. So if you needed something done, you want cabinets built for your new house. You're not going to ask at all to see the guy's shop or the woman's CAD design program. You're going to go, that person knows how to build cabinets, build them. But there are other jobs where people feel entitled to micromanage, and I think that's their own arrogance. I don't think these ad executives had any business saying anything about where the flowers. Personally, I don't think that was their domain. But I do think sometimes you would be happy to have a rebel if you saw what they did and you wanted what they make. You'd go, I want what you make, and you'd stay out of it.
That's true.
And that's the thing is rebels who get themselves to a place where their rebel strengths are recognized and rewarded are very
Yeah.
happy, but rebels who are in a place where people want to micromanage them. But here's an odd thing. When rebels pair up, whether in romance or at work, they often pair up with obligers. So it's interesting that you really don't like the idea of working with a rebel. So,
Yeah.
With
yeah,
me,
Yeah,
who
yeah.
she works with.
No, so I think you're a questioner.
Okay, so great. So we're kind of caught up on some of the things you've already done. Now, what led you to this now new approach into the pursuit of happiness?
So again, I had this actual moment that I can point to. I could find it on my calendar. I get pink eye a lot. So
Congratulations.
Yes, one does. And I got a particularly stubborn case. So I went to the eye doctor. And as I was getting ready to leave, he said to me very casually, like, hey, wear your sunscreen, or hey, be sure to drink enough water. He's like, hey, be sure to come back for your checkup because as you know, you're more at risk of losing your vision. And I was like, wait, what are you talking about? I don't know anything about
I
this.
did not know that.
And he said, yes, you're extremely nearsighted, which I knew. He said, and because you're so nearsighted, you're at greater risk for a detached retina, and that can affect your vision. And I had a friend who had just lost some of his vision to a detached retina. So
And you have that watery eye issue.
yeah, well, yeah.
They're probably related.
Yeah, there's sort of a whole eye theme here. So I was very shocked by this. And of course, I intellectually knew you can lose anything at any time. And I could have a rich, meaningful life, even if I did lose my vision or one of my senses. And I was just like, here I am. I'm so overwhelmed by the thought that I could lose my vision. And yet, walking over here, I saw none of this. I had noticed not one thing. I was stuck in my head. I'm taking everything for granted. And as I was having this realization, I start walking, and it was like every knob got turned up. Every sight was crystal clear. Every sound was on a separate track. I could smell every smell. And New York City is very smelly. Every smell with perfect clarity. I was walking, it was like almost psychedelic experience. And I was just blown away. And I'm like, this is happening all the time. And I'm just missing all of it. I'm stuck in my head. I'm in this fog. And as I was walking, I just realized this was a missing puzzle piece. I've been thinking about happiness in all these different ways, but I knew there was something I was missing. I knew that there was a puzzle piece that I just hadn't grasped. And by the time I got home and like I saw my husband and my daughters, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. It's the 5 senses. This is what's going to get me this direct contact that I've been craving without understanding that I was craving it.
Just side note, we just interviewed these 2 wonderful women, Susan and Ivy. One is in charge of Google's product design. The other one is a neurobiologist
She's at
Johns Hopkins.
Yeah.
And they've collaborated, and it's all about aesthetic. This is your brain on art. It's really cool. And it really gets into the real definition of aesthetic, which I didn't realize, which is your senses, all the information your body takes in without your knowing it. And one thing that was really interesting is they designed these 4 separate rooms as part of this art conference, and everyone was decorated different with different furniture, and they put all these biometric monitors on the people as they walked through, and they weren't allowed to use their phone or do anything. They just had to exist in these spaces, and the computer recorded. If you asked people what their favorite room was, 50% of the time they would have said a room that was different from what their body liked. Meaning they had the lowest cortisol levels, their heart rate was the most stable, all these different metrics for contentment, relaxing, all these optimal states of being. People didn't know what one was most pleasurable for their body.
Interesting.
Yeah, super fascinating. So there's like what you think you like, which is often in response to some other childhood thing.
Right.
And then there's what you're genetically designed to enjoy.
Well, and there's also a factor where we're hardwired for sight, like we have more real estate in the brain, and we're sort of by just design more sight focused. And if there's a conflict, sight usually trumps other senses. And I had this experience where like I was looking in my closet and I was thinking, I have these shirts that I like. Why don't I ever wear them? And so I was like, why don't I ever wear them? And I realized I don't like the way they feel. But because I like the way they look, like you're saying. So now when I go into a dressing room, I shut my eyes and I'm like, how does it feel? Is it too tight? Is it scratchy? Is it too heavy? Because if I see it and I like it,
always prioritize that.
the sight wins.
That's
And I'm
fascinating.
ignoring this other bodily. But in the long run,
And
the
there might
body,
even be a smell as well.
right? Yes.
Yeah. Because
No.
sometimes I'll wear a shirt. I don't know
Yeah.
where the fuck it came from, like the launders. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what is that? It's not bad.
Or
It's
like
just,
a product where you're like, I like the texture, but I never feel like putting on this sunscreen. It's like, I don't like the way it smells. Or you like the way it smells, but you don't like
the way it
texture.
feels on you. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're right. It's
Interesting.
like, I don't think we're always that good at sorting through.
right. And really the only way you would know is if you had this complicated biometric device on that really told you.
Yeah. This is why everybody wants everything immersive now. It's like you want that full body experience.
Yeah.
Like even if you can't read the metrics on it, you still want all that information coming into your body. I think people are craving that.
And by the way, it's coming in. You're just observing it or you're not.
Yes.
And that's what it is a call to, is like observe all this info that's coming in around you at all times.
But it's hard. I live in New York City and my producer's always like, you got to stop. There's a siren going. I don't hear the siren.
Of course.
But he said in LA here, people don't hear helicopters.
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
White
Because-
noise.
Or like you can't smell your home the way a guest smells it. because
hate
of
that.
odor fatigue. Have you experienced this?
I am always fearful that it
Yes.
smells, and I have no
Her
idea.
apartment smells like socks and bacon. No,
Socks? Oh
I'm
no,
teasing.
bacon I'm okay
teasing,
with
I'm
actually.
teasing.
But like chicken smell, I'm
Oh,
always
sure.
like
You
aware.
don't know it. Like,
But
if-
that's childhood trauma. That's from being
That is a
different.
little
It
bit
is the
childhood
Indian
trauma.
thing. You're like, oh my God, if people smell this
Yeah.
Indian food, they'll know I'm different.
But it's just interesting to realize that there is information there that others would perceive instantly, and your brain is just removing it. And intellectually, you know it, but when you confront, it's just like the dress. Remember the dress, white and gold or blue and black?
yeah, you were just on Good Morning America and you
Yeah.
gave that example.
Yes,
and they
because-
showed the dress. And of course, same exact reaction I had 2 years ago. I'm like, yeah, it's fucking blue and black.
Well, you're
What is
right. What do you
anyone
see, Monica?
talking
Wait, now
about?
I forget. I
It's
wanna
white
see-
and gold or blue and black.
Right,
You
okay.
see blue and black.
Oh, like, there's no way I could find my way to white and gold. Like, that
And
seems
I
impossible.
cannot see blue and black.
Yeah.
But it's funny because usually you can see either. You could see the duck, you can see the rabbit, you could see the vases, or you could see the faces. You cannot see white and gold, and I
No.
cannot see blue and black.
They mess with the picture sometimes so that you
Oh,
can see.
they help you.
Yeah, like they're doing it here, but I don't know what the
Well, they just
original.
painted that one.
Where's the original?
If you
Yeah.
go to Good Morning America and watch her on it.
Or it's on. It was on Facebook in 2015, I think, is what the original post was.
Yeah, go ahead and find
Yeah.
that original. Okay, but what you're proposing in this book is also something I've been hearing, I don't know, in the last couple of years as a component or a tenet of mindfulness as well.
Yes. It's interesting though, because in the mindfulness community, it's often kind of in a meditative way, like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or like let's sit down and look at a piece of art for 20 minutes, or let's have a sip of coffee for like 10 minutes. And that's great for people, but I wanted like more playful ways to do it, like
Yeah.
more energetic, more fun. For me, I was like, I really don't want to taste a cup of coffee for 20 minutes.
I have to give my wife credit. The reason I'm aware of it most recently is we have an 8 and 10-year-old,
Yeah.
and they lose their shit, as you would guess, as 8 and 10-year-olds do. And one of her things will be, see if we can muster up
Yeah.
the courage to have 5 breaths. And then it's, what do you smell? Touch something. She takes them through their senses to
Right.
put them in right now. Because generally your anxiety is about the future or the past.
Right.
It's rarely about the second. When writing about the smell aspect, you point out this really obvious but novel thought, which is smell's one of the only senses that you can't save. It's very transient and it forces a present state of mind.
Well, and I experienced this. I was in Central Park and they have all these beautiful like apple blossoms blooming. And I walked by and it was just the most beautiful fragrant smell. So I took a deep breath and then odor fatigue. I couldn't smell it anymore. So you're right. It's like only in the moment. A scratch and sniff is like the closest you can get to a photograph of a smell. But even then, you can't keep experiencing. It's like the song where you can wear it out because you could just play it on repeat all day long. It's like you can't do that with the scent. It is only of the moment and a fleeting moment.
Yeah. It's kind of beautiful. It's like cherry blossoms. They're the cherry blossoms of senses.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they're fleeting.
They're
Wait, so
fleeting.
you said there's a quiz for this too?
Yeah, it's for what's your neglected sense. Again, GretchenRubin.com/quiz.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. we
5
love
senses
it.
quiz. Okay, first of all, touch in on some of the science behind this.
The more you know, the more you notice. So it was really fun to just learn about how they work. And one thing that, again, I kind of knew intellectually, but I had never really experimented with it, which is the connection between smell and taste. Because if you're just tasting something with no ability to smell, you're going to only taste the big 5 of sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami. You really need smell if you're going to have like complex flavors. And you can do this just like with a Jelly Belly. Plug your nose, put it in your mouth, and you'll get a big hit of sweet. And then when you unplug your nose, it'll turn into root beer or bubble gum or pina colada or all those crazy flavors they have. Unfortunately, I think because of COVID, many more people became aware of this because a lot of people thought that they had lost their sense of taste, but it was actually their sense of smell. And so now I think people have become more aware of that connection than they were like 5 years ago.
And you pointed out something so bizarre that I had no idea about, which is I knew about the ears. So your ears, they're not homogeneous. They are different, as are your eyes.
Yeah.
Your eyes each see a little bit differently,
Yeah.
and your ears hear a little
Yes.
bit differently. And you point out your nostrils
Yes.
are different.
Yes.
Oh, weird.
Yes, like if you ever see sort of experts, they'll wave something below their nose. That's why, because it's getting both nostrils.
You had the host pinch one side
Yeah.
of their nose.
Yeah, no, and you can really
Can
smell.
you smell this candle?
Inside joke, sorry. There's a robot on the show.
And he sounds like this.
Thank you for just jumping in.
I really like him.
She likes the robot much more than Dax.
Well, the robot's just so sweet.
He is. He's much nicer than me.
He's not a rebel.
He's a
Obliger.
an obliger. Yeah, for sure. Well, he's been designed to serve humans.
Exactly.
Yeah,
There you
so
go.
naturally.
There
He doesn't
you
have
go.
any internal goals. Okay. Is there any kind of social science experiments where it's like people who view art 30 minutes a day, or people who do blank see this increase? Are there any kind of studies that have been done on the senses and how they can improve your experience, and what commitment would it be before you saw results?
Well, I think the thing that would be relevant that's really interesting in this context is giving yourself recess, giving yourself breaks. You were talking earlier about kind of this super high achieving culture of productivity, moving forward. But that actually there's a lot of research that shows that people who take breaks, that let their minds wander, they are more likely to have creative breakthroughs, to make unexpected juxtapositions, unusual associations.
Right.
And so back to this idea of outside in, it's hard for me to just be like, take a break. For me, I kind of need something concrete to do. So I think for some people, it's very helpful to think, okay, this is a way that I can do it. I'm going to go outside and experience nature for 15 minutes, and that's going to be how I give myself that break. Or like with snacking, you want to get that little jolt of energy. Well, you're reaching for one of your senses, but you can reach for a different sense. Like you love music. You could be like, I'm going to listen to new music for 10 minutes. Or I love smell. I'm going to go smell a hardware store. I'm going to smell some pine cone or whatever it would be, because that'll allow me to get that little jolt of energy, that bit of distraction.
So you're arguing that impulse to eat is really just a call to stimulate your senses.
I think it's more than that, because there's a lot going on when you're giving yourself a snack for a treat. I think it's a combination. I think it's a distraction, and it is a little bit of a sensory jolt. And so it feels more satisfying than just skipping it. And since I've suggested, a lot of people have said like, oh, that really works. Yeah. So you substitute one sense for the sense of taste.
You have a prescription for creativity, and it's through sight. And I think this is so clever, because I think if you ask your average person, like, go outside and look around and then allow yourself to become creative, I don't know if anything's going to happen. Whereas you give yourself specific objectives. So I'm going on a walk and I'm going to spot everything that's purple.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to pay attention to the building material of every building I pass. And then what happens while you're doing that?
Well, you just, so many things you just overlook. But when you give yourself something to look for, you start seeing things in a very different way. I mean, you see that even with like store logos. When you're like, oh, look at the people in the Tostitos logo, or look at the 31 in the Baskin Robbins logo, or look at the arrow in the FedEx is the craziest one. Once you see that, you can't
In
unsee
the
it.
Amazon?
It's
one?
almost
in FedEx.
satanic. It's almost demonic. It's
mean, it's
like
so there.
hidden. Yeah.
I can't even imagine it.
And it's so obvious.
It's blatant.
It's
and
blatant.
yet you've never seen it.
Looking for those things is very exciting. The hidden 8 on the 8 of diamonds.
Wait, there's a hidden 8 on the 8 of diamonds.
Yeah.
Standard playing card, you're
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. You have to look at the negative space. Look at the negative space.
Oh my
But so
God,
again, when you look
Gretchen.
for these things,
What
it's very
else?
exciting to see
Yeah,
them. Well,
these are
you
fun.
tell
These are
me,
pop-outs.
like,
I'm not observant. I don't know any of these.
but see, it's fun because then when you start looking, you start seeing all these things.
Well, I can definitely see why that would lead to creativity, because our brains are pattern finding
Yes,
machines.
yes.
Half of creativity is finding a pattern that actually isn't a pattern, but now is your new novel proprietary idea or invention.
It's all pattern and breaks in pattern. That is what the brain is constantly looking for. What's the pattern? How's it breaking?
I need to be able to predict this to feel safe.
Yeah, probably the most ambitious exercise I did for Life in 5 Senses was to go to the Metropolitan Museum every day. And I wanted to have something where it was very repetitious. There was a lot that was repeated. There was the pattern of going every day. And then within that pattern, I would be able to see all the things that I was overlooking. I've been going ever since. I've been going way more than a year. And I talked to a guy, Patrick Bingley, who wrote a book about his experience being a guard. And he told me about guard marks. There are places in the Met where there's just these marks on the wall, which is where the guards lean against the wall while they're standing there, and it marks the wall, like these big stripes. And it was right at the top of the grand stairs. I'm like, I have walked here dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of times. The wall has this huge stripe on it. Never noticed it.
Wow.
Never. And now I'm like, how could I have missed it? And it's such a funny thing. A guard mark. Who even knew there was a name for that? But I hadn't seen it until somebody pointed it out. And now I can't unsee it. We overlook these things. But then when we really try to see or to hear or to smell or to taste or to touch, the world becomes just more in focus. And it's so exciting.
Okay, now, I have a knee jerk to the art museum.
Could be anything. Somebody was like, I go to my drugstore every day. I'm like, there's so much to see at a big chain drugstore. That would be super
That's
cool.
true, and it's changing. New products
All the
in.
time and new people.
Especially in my neighborhood, people are
hanging out.
Oh, they're
Peeing on the
people
yeah,
are falling
there's a lot
out.
to
There's
see.
cardiac arrest.
What
there's
the music is. So the Met, I'm just incredibly fortunate that I live within walking distance, which I totally recognize 100%.
No, so this would be my own curiosity about spending a whole year there. So I don't know if you ever watch Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Larry David, famously in one of the episodes, he goes to the beach and someone asks him how he likes it. And he said, I hate the beach. I sit at the beach and I look at everyone else and I think, what are you all getting out of this that I'm not getting out of it, right? I relate to that feeling so much. I think it must be universal. Maybe not at the beach, but somewhere. A museum's largely that. Where I'm walking through and I'm like, people are staring and staring. And I look and I'm like, yeah, okay, I don't know. I bet 1 in 80 pieces of art interests me. But I fantasize about doing what you're doing. Slowly, my classism warfare would disappear. My sense of feeling judged would disappear. And my feeling like a Philistine that I don't like it would disappear. And at some point, I might start appreciating it in a way that I was previously unable. So I'm curious, did your own appreciation evolve over that year? And did you find yourself honing in on something and going like, I never thought those were amazing, but now it's all I think about?
Well, I will say that I think it's the experience of the museum itself that I like better than like going to see the art, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
Like, a museum is a different kind of space. It's like more formal. It's kind of an interesting kind of quiet.
I think it's stuffy.
First of all, I would say then you could pick any place. You could do the same hike every day. Seeing how things change very subtly over time is exciting.
Yeah.
So the drugstore, the same hike through your neighborhood. And the thing about the Met is it's big, so it's kind of maze-like, and there's all these kind of hidden nooks and crannies.
Good people
and,
watching.
Yeah. So I know what you mean. I don't go and stare at rapture in some masterpiece. For me, it's much more about the atmosphere of the museum itself.
I dig that. At some point, someone pointed out to me that if ever in front of a Van Gogh, notice how much of the canvas is not painted. He was famous for leaving lots of the canvas without paint. And the areas that have paint have so much fucking
He
paint.
does have a lot of paint.
Yeah, it's
The
just
one-
gooped
yeah,
on,
yeah.
right? Once someone told me to look for that, I found myself so interested in these paintings because I'm like, my God, 10% of that canvas is exposed, but you don't see it in the fireworks of the goop.
And there's so many fun things that you can do, even if you're sort of not into classic like art appreciation. There's a color company called Pantone that really
love it.
Okay, so you know every year they have the color of the year. So I had a swatch on my phone.
Viva Magenta.
And yes, exactly. Okay, well we can discuss what we think of that color later.
Look.
Oh my gosh. Okay, Monica, you got to do this. Go to a museum
Okay.
and look and see. Can you see that? You look for it, and it's
that's
so
fun.
fun. If you buy a postcard of a piece of art and then you go look at the actual thing and you're holding it in front, you'll see it in a completely different way. Especially if it's big, you can't take in the whole thing.
I have a new goal of memorizing all the Pantones. Apparently, Pharrell is really good at that. He can like see this blue and name the Pantone.
Oh my gosh.
Even though there's no way that blue's in the Pantones.
Well, so
but-
I know someone who has kind of
No, this will
perfect
be next
pitch
year's.
for color. Like she
Oh,
can have a
see?
color in her mind. If she saw a piece of paint, she could go and say, "Oh, well, this chair will match it," because I can't hold a color in my mind.
interesting.
But maybe Pharrell can. I don't know.
He probably can.
Has he thought about interior design at all?
Well, he's now the men's head of Louis Vuitton.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
The fact that my children in their public elementary school had a segment on the history of hip hop and they had to paint pictures of Snoop Dogg, I was like, I like this so much. And the notion now that every one of these luxury brands is being run by someone from hip hop,
Well, just-
I just love it.
Yeah.
Two-
Not every.
two
but,
of 'em.
Yeah.
And maybe three.
But still, it's cool.
It's really great. I
Yeah.
love you. I don't know why. This is so wonderful. Okay, in the book, you have some tools laid out. 5 senses quiz. We already talked about that. We're going to take that in the fact check
Yep.
for sure. Manifesto for listening. What is that?
So with our sense of hearing, one of the most important things we do is listen to other people. But I really wanted to up my game and do much better. So whenever I feel like there's something that I need to work on, I try to do like a crystallization through a manifesto. And so I wrote down everything that I was trying to do with listening, which is things like turn your body to somebody and face them to show that you're listening. Like, you know, if you're at a party and you're sort of turned away from somebody, you're not really paying attention. You put down my phone, my book, anything that would show that I was distracted, allowing silence, not rushing in. Also, I realized that if things got heavy or it was uncomfortable, I would often, even before I was consciously aware, like be starting to steer the conversation to safer ground. It was very hard for me to like stay with somebody who was expressing pain. And also I realized I have this habit of suggesting books. It's like, I'm getting a divorce. I'm like, oh my gosh, have you read this book?
10 fun ways to get divorced.
Yeah, or like, oh, my child's having this problem. I have to go, oh, have you read this book?
Solutions you're trying.
Solution. Yeah. And for me, it's always about a book. It's always like, this is your reading list. And then I realize they're not asking me, hey, Gretchen, do you have a book to recommend? I'm like, you can send that in an email later if you want to. But in the moment, stay open, listen, paraphrase and be like, it sounds like you're feeling blank. And that for me was hard because I was always trying to rush through. And then in the end, when in doubt, stop talking.
That's my hardest one.
That's the hardest one.
Okay. Now, Rubin's own audio apothecary.
So, music, there's so much research, and we all know this from our own experience, that it has such a powerful influence on our mental, physical, and emotional well-being. And here's the funny thing about music. It's a universal constant in human culture. Every human culture has music, and they don't really know why. There's a lot of theories about why it is, but it's not clear why. It doesn't seem evolutionarily necessary, and yet everybody has it. I still am not a person who listens to music all that much. One of the things I discovered in the process of doing this book is I'm a song lover, not a music lover. So I'll listen to like the one song, but I won't then listen to the whole album. Or like, let me listen to more songs by that person, or let me listen to that genre. I just like the one song. I don't go to concerts because I just want to listen to one song. But I decided I wanted to make a list to cure the blues. And so I made the audio apothecary for if I wanted to listen to music that would just energize me, make me happy, cure the blues.
And
So I
ding,
made
ding, ding, Pharrell was on your list.
right, there you go.
Oh,
Yeah, of course.
If
He's
you
like
feel-
if you were saying like, what song is most associated with happy? I think that's his song.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of people do this. They'll have playlists for like working out or playlists for like meditating, but I had never done that before. So it was very powerful for me.
I have a very strong association with exactly what you're talking about. I happen to love music and I listen to it nonstop.
Yeah.
I enjoy it actually even more when I'm very sad and depressed, listening to my sad and depressed playlist. I end up feeling comforted and a lack of loneliness in a way that, oh my gosh, this musician clearly felt exactly what I feel. That music signals to me that I'm not alone in this grief or alone in this misery. It's like a companion, and I feel seen by the music.
By having a playlist for that, you kind of have that in your toolkit to manage an emotion. It's easy to become kind of passive and just let sensory experiences or even emotions wash over us instead of thinking like, what could I do to address it? Things aren't always within your control, but sometimes things are within your control.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
So let me ask you two this question. If you need to really focus, so you're doing your highest intellectually demanding work, do you want silence, busy hum like a coffee shop, music with words, music without words, or like white, pink, or brown noise? Monica.
Oh,
It can't obviously be editing because then you're listening to something.
right.
It has
That's
to be
what I had.
something. Yeah, if
I'm
you're like
writing or something.
yeah, if you're writing or like you're taking notes on something and you really have to focus.
I think coffee shop.
That's Gretchen's favorite.
I like that or silence.
Yes,
Same.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it either needs to be a very steady cacophony of noises that I couldn't possibly focus on, or dead quiet.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
But people who listen to music
I don't
with
get
lyrics
it.
while they read, I really can't understand.
I don't get it. I
No.
don't
People
get
do.
it.
People
do.
study with lyrical music on.
Or music with
Robbie
no
Rob
words.
is about to say he can't. Do you study with music on? Not lyrical, but music. Yeah. Huh?
See, I could not do that. I was on a plane. I was waiting for a plane to take off, so I was reading my book, and they were playing music. And I was like, I just want to sit here and read, turn off the music, but I
Yeah.
can't turn it off.
Noise canceling headphones. They cure all things.
I have noise-canceling AirPods. I should put them in. I don't know why I didn't. But see, here I go. I was having an experience, and I was passively enduring it instead of thinking, hey, is there a way within my own power that I can change my experience? Yes, I happen to have something in my backpack right now that I can use.
You're not a Capricorn, are you?
No,
Okay.
What are you, Virgo?
I'm a Sagittarius.
Oh.
We don't know enough
enough about
I don't know
Sagittarius.
enough about
Ooh,
Sagittarius.
okay.
I asked you that because I have the Air Max. They're outrageously expensive, but you should get them. And Monica saw in a cab in London, 90 minutes in this cab with the two kids fighting and everyone screaming. And I put those on and I was like, this is what's preventing me from stepping out of this cab and walking away from my life.
Well, and people say you don't realize how enervating it is to be on a plane with that noise, especially a long flight, and that you are much less drained from a flight if you have the noise canceling. But it has to be the over-the-ear kind.
Because it's
right?
quite unpleasant. Your brain now is
Yeah.
very occupied in diminishing that discomfort.
Yeah, except Bradley Cooper had them on in the subway and almost got stabbed
Because he wasn't paying attention.
because the world was quiet.
But see, now, knowing my personality, it'd be best that I miss that kind of thing because I would most certainly get involved.
It was him. He wasn't watching somebody else getting stabbed.
Right, but if I had seen it coming, I would have, it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying?
Back to the research, I'm much more careful of my ears now. Like in the subway, it's incredibly loud and this kind of high-pitched shrieking. And I'll cover my ears now because they're delicate and they don't repair.
Nor were they designed to hear
No,
that kind of...
no, they're not.
It's
They're
very
no,
foreign to
like
our...
an occasional tree falling in a forest, yes.
Yeah, a,
You know,
a
maybe
lion's
a
roar.
rock dropping off a waterfall, but
Yeah.
not the New York subway system for sure.
And nothing in nature makes that unique rail, squeaky wheel on rail squeal.
So here's something weird that I keep wanting to look up again. Apparently, nails on a chalkboard is a universally horrible
Bad.
sound. Because you can see why all cultures don't like the sound of a baby crying, but why do all cultures just like that scraping sound?
Do you have an explanation?
No. What's your hypothesis?
I know for me, I know exactly what the noise is.
Mm-hmm.
There's no question. And it's nails. And so I go straight to a mirror neuron. My nails are going to bend back and break. I think we all have an enormous
Okay.
fear of our nails breaking. So I think
interesting.
because we know how the noise is generated, we have an instinctual, my nails are going to break. Maybe?
Okay, here's another thing. Your kids are in the sour stage. They don't know why, but there's across cultures, more than adults, young kids like sour. And they don't know why. But you know how kids, they go through that period where they love sour.
Yes, warheads.
Yes, and you're like, why do they like them?
I got a theory right now already.
What about the ripeness of fruit? That's one of the theories.
Oh, that's much
but
better
why
than
at
mine.
that age?
Well, my hunch would be this. Their taste buds and all their olfactory buds are so acute and sensitive. They're brand new. They're not callous. They're not beat down. They haven't filed any of it to white noise. I have noticed in my own trajectory of eating is like, I need more and more action to get any kind of a spike, right? Like, and I think everyone's tolerance for spice goes up dramatically as they get older.
Probably because your sense of smell is diminishing. Too.
Exactly.
Right.
All those other ones we might indulge in are just too much for them. As I know, if my kids try any of the spicy stuff, it's too much for them with those beautiful,
bitter.
sensitive, or bitter. Perhaps sour's the one that you can explore that isn't I don't know.
But little kids don't like it. I don't know.
Oh,
It's
little kids
interesting.
don't.
Little kids don't. It's sort of 8 to 12-ish.
And then you're saying that's cross culture
Yes.
because a lot of cultures, kids are
Eating
exposed to
spice.
spice.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So that's weird.
Yeah.
Okay, I like
just
that
odd.
fruit one is
Yeah,
interesting.
Just odd.
But why not babies?
Yeah, it's
Babies
just-
should like fruit
Well, because
too.
if they're
odd.
going to forage at that age,
yeah.
they need to know what's ripe and what's not ripe.
Well, sure, but just why would there ever be a zone where you
Yeah.
wouldn't like it?
Right.
It should always be incentivized because fruit is ideal for us to consume.
But maybe it does have to do with a maturation. It's like a transition or something.
But also maybe because they're unmilked and actually they are prone to diarrhea when they're really little. So maybe the fruit with all the fiber would increase diarrhea. So we don't want them to be attracted to fibrous. Who knows?
Oh,
This is why we did
wow.
anthropology. It's endlessly fascinating guessing.
Yeah. And maybe this will all be disproved. I know you've talked about the replication crisis. It might be like,
Oh.
maybe this was one little warhead.
You listen to Paul Bloom.
Oh, yeah, well.
Warhead
Yeah.
sponsored.
Yeah. So maybe it's like, okay, let's replicate that a couple times before we spin out our hypothesis.
We don't really know shit about anything. I hate to break it to everybody. Okay, what's the muse machine?
Okay, this is this very fun thing I did. I would have periods where I would be creatively stuck and somebody would say a phrase or I would read something and all of a sudden I would have this way forward. And so I started writing them down and I was just collecting them. And some of them were things that had occurred to me and some were like ones that I'd read that I'm like, oh, that's a really good one. I should remember it. And I had a list of them. I just called it my indirect directions because they're just like a phrase like skip the boring parts or break the frame, something like that. So just very short and kind of mysterious because you sort of had to figure it out. So they were just on my computer, and I kept thinking, I'm just going to one day forget I created this. I have all this stuff lying around. I just forget I'm working on it, and it vanishes. And then I was reading all this stuff about how we can think more clearly when we are using physical items. And this is like, if you go to the eye doctor and he's saying, oh, this is what's wrong with your retina, it's like they'll show you a little model, or, or like, this is what a double helix is, or this is how physics works. Because when we can grasp ideas with our hands, we can grasp them more easily with our mind. So I was thinking about this in creativity. And then I, by chance, was home in Kansas City, and I saw my father's ancient Rolodex, those old cards.
Yeah.
And I was just loved it. Like, it's so inviting. It's so
Experience.
tactile. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's what I'll do with my indirect directions. I'll put them on a Rolodex. And then whenever I'm creatively stuck, kind of like astrology, I can just spin it and
Spin the wheel.
pick it, and I'll figure out a way to make it work. Because a lot of times you want the randomness of the universe to kick something up, and then you make something make sense. So I was like, okay, so I get the Rolodex, copy them on it. But then the question is, what is the name for this thing? I was calling it indirect directions. That's pretty boring. Then I was calling it Rolodex of ideas. That was pretty boring. So I thought, well, this is my first challenge. I'm creatively stuck. I'll spin my Rolodex around, because I had a circular Rolodex. I'll pick a card and I'll just do what it says. So I picked a card, and the card said, find a fresh metaphor. So then I'm like, okay, I put that on my bulletin board. I'm like, I can't think of any metaphors for this Rolodex. Like, what do you call it? Creativity, whatever. I wasn't coming up with anything. And then I was at the Met, and at the Met, there's this amazing giant inkstand that's Apollo and the Muses, and it's got all these little cubbies and all these little drawers, and it's covered with the Muses and Apollo and all these famous poets, and it's very elaborate. And I thought, wow, that is just what you need. If you want to be creative, is you need an inkstand with muses. And then I thought, oh, my thing will be the muse machine.
Oh, I like that.
So that's my muse machine. So now if I need an idea, I just flip it and pick an idea.
Yeah.
Cool. I like that.
I was chasing the tail of somehow connecting it to roulette.
You want to cast your own dice. You want the universe to direct you.
You want the universe to direct you, and you also want a remote control for the universe.
Oh my gosh. You got to put that on a t-shirt.
I am so much like you. If you were to go through my desk, my doors, everything in my room, there are 36 short stories half written. I mean, I have yellow pads of paper with full movies sketched.
Yeah.
I mean, I have so many fucking ideas just floating around.
So this is another, if you like quizzes or you like categories, there's finishers and openers. So finishers like to finish, like they like to finish the tube of toothpaste, and they like to cross something off the list and hand something in, ship something.
Yeah.
Openers love to open and start, whether it's a box of cereal or like an academic paper. In general, I'm a finisher, which is why I think I was so anxious about the indirect directions.
I have a track record of being a finisher for sure, but I have to have a system in place for that to work.
Yes,
So
yes,
my
yes.
system was such when I was still pitching and selling movie ideas and writing the scripts. The key is figuring out which one has legs. So as a rule of thumb, I wouldn't let myself start to jot ideas down unless I had that idea and I had been telling people about it, which I'm prone to do. And I found that I was still doing it 3 months later.
Interesting.
That to me would be like the test. As a writer of screenplays, you have to live with that idea for 2 years.
Yes.
So I needed a little trial period before I'd commit because I was committing to too many too early that didn't have the legs.
Yes. So you couldn't get them over the finish line.
Yeah, they run out of steam on their own. It's like, oh, really just the kernel was good or whatever it was. So I think people could also figure out a little system for themselves.
Wait, can I ask you a question? So ever since I listened to your episode about relapse, in my book, Better Than Before, I talk about like the strategy of the clean slate and don't break the chain and like how people love. And for so many people, the chain is so powerful and they don't break the chain and they don't break the chain. And that's very, very helpful.
Yes.
It's a very, very powerful strategy for a lot of people. And it seemed to me that for you, the pain of breaking the chain was so overwhelming that it was counterproductive. And I'm wondering, for people who are in that place where they almost are stuck, how did you allow yourself to think through? Because clearly also the people around you were struggling to help you understand that in one way you had to admit that you had broken the chain.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you learned so much. For people who were kind of stuck in that hard place, what would you say you learned?
I love this question because I don't have the answer. We're, I don't know what it is, 2.5 years away from that moment.
It's been a while.
2020.
And I still don't have the answer. What I know for me, I have no recommendations for anyone else and how they handle their sobriety. I see the position I got myself in is one I want to avoid in the future. It's very tricky. You're right. The power of cumulative time and the stakes of losing the cumulative time is very powerful. And by the way, if I had drank this morning, then of course I'm going to drink tonight because what I already did. So a lot of things are true at the same time.
Yes.
It's like, on one hand, I think it's very powerful and I advise people to do it. And there's nothing that feels better than looking in the mirror one morning and go, fucking A, 5 years I haven't drank alcohol? That's impossible.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
I love it. For me, it was distracting to the work. It became a lot about that date. I've had more sober stretches with a year of sobriety than I did with 14 years of sobriety, if that makes any sense. Like, I could be going to less meetings, have a less connection with the fellowship, be working the program less, but still have way more time. I don't think it's the only evaluation of sobriety. And another thing I think is hugely problematic about the whole system, and I think there's a lot of people in AA that wrestle with this. People are trying to kind of talk about it and figure it out. But let me put it this way. If in 20 years of an addict's life, he or she didn't use for 18 of those years, that's an insane miracle. That's an impossibility. An addict not using when they wake up is impossible. So a singular evaluation of the success being cumulative seems incomplete and not honest. I don't know if someone relapsed once a year for 20 years, but they really were sober 364 out of 365 days for 20 years. Huge accomplishment. Impossible.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm still confused about it. I know I've not decided to reconnect to that big time thing.
Right.
I found it to be, for me, ultimately not the greatest.
But like, to your point about like both things being true, because when you look at don't break the chain or whatever, it's clear that what you do every day matters a lot. On the other hand, people who cut themselves slack when they screw up and show themselves compassion tend to do a better job of getting back on. And I think a lot of people really are so hard on themselves because they think, if I'm really hard on myself, I'll be more dedicated. But actually, then that makes you less likely to sort of get back in the saddle. So on the one hand, you have to say, it matters tremendously. And then on the other hand, you have to say, like, but if I screw up, there's a way back. And I thought one of the things that was interesting about what you said is, I used to be able to lie. Now I couldn't lie. That was huge.
I mean, I could lie, but I hated it. The mind fuck of it is, if you've had a lot of time, this is a chronic condition in the program. When people have had a lot of time and they lose it, it used to be, I'm going to try to get sober one more day. Like, oh my God, I've been sober 10 days. I'm going to get sober for 11 days. That'll be great. Tomorrow will be 12. I don't know if I'll ever be sober as long as I was the last time. And that's a real mind fuck.
So is
like,
this tying into your, like, now I have to run 7 miles?
Yeah, so if I do this thing and the time is super important to me, I'm doing it knowing it won't be until 2040 that I have 16 years again, till I'm back where I was. That thought is kind of overwhelming, makes it feel pointless, and why even pursue it? I'm never going to have that time again. I can't really focus now on the time thing for me.
Well, the whole point of AA is built on minute by minute, day by day.
And Monica just nailed it. So I really have switched to, like, I'm sober today.
Which is
and
how
if you
you
ask me
got
tomorrow,
sober.
I think I'll be sober tomorrow.
So you're using don't break the chain, but it's day by day.
But I don't even know the date the way I used to know. I still know my first date, but I have to think about the second date. The whole thing is very weird in my head. Like I said, I don't have an answer for it, and I don't know what's advisable to other people. I just know if I really start thinking about, oh, great, I have 2 years. My next thought will be like, you had 16. Oh my God, it's 14 more years before you had what you had.
Right.
That feels insurmountable. And that's
Right.
the whole point of day at a time. Getting sober for the rest of your life is not possible. Getting sober today is possible.
That's so interesting.
Right? Because people
Right.
come in and they go
Right, and
like,
that
well,
feels
what
so
am I going to do when my
impossible. It's
son
like-
turns 21 and he wants to have a beer with his dad? I'm like, let's worry about that in
Yes.
20 years
Yeah,
when
yeah,
your son
yeah.
turns 21.
Yeah.
Today, he's not 21 and we
Right.
can get through today. And odds are we'll get through his 21st birthday on that day. So that's
Yeah.
where it's a real
Okay, that's
weird,
interesting.
triggery thing.
Well, it's good to hear that this is a tension that many people struggle with. And maybe that itself is useful for people to know, that it's a hard thing to kind of wrap your mind around.
It is. And I've seen it take out way more people than I've seen come back and re-achieve the original sobriety they have. I just don't feel myself going on that path again for whatever reason. I'm like, yeah, today I'm sober.
Yeah.
For other people, I encourage them to use a different thing, and it probably works for them.
Yeah. Ever since I heard that, I was very curious. And then I thought, hey, I'm actually going to be talking to that guy. I can ask him myself.
Well, listen, I think that your book, Life in Five Senses, how exploring the senses got me out of my head and into the world is fantastic. I don't want to say I know you're onto something. You already know you're onto something. But I'll say something that I enjoy is when I get that spidey tingle reading something when I go, oh, right, that explains when I do that thing. That's why this thing happens. Like everything that you've written about is very tangible. It's very practicable. It's very actionable. One thing, Monica, this is really cool for you or not, maybe. Touch has a very calming, for people with anxiety in particular. Gretchen holds a pen, but holding a rock that has texture.
Oh.
There's something about holding something and feeling it and experiencing it that has an anti-anxiety
that's
effect.
interesting.
Yeah.
And I've talked to people like hold a clipboard, a cold water bottle. There's something, it's just very grounding.
It made me want to have like a kind of porous rock.
Yeah, like a volcanic rock.
Yeah, I feel like something about
Interesting.
that would be very calming
Oh, I
for
haven't
me.
thought about the texture of like lava. That's a very cool texture.
Yeah.
And then it's like something that you can do. You're like, I need to calm down. I'm going to pick it
I
up.
get that. Maybe that's why I like mugs so much.
That's a great one. Do you have a mug do you like them because of their
I
texture?
collect these Starbucks ones, and I say it's because of the size, but I do think I like just holding.
Are your hands
something.
always cold though too? And it's like nice to hold something warm.
There's a lot going on
There's
there.
so
there's
many
no-
factors.
Is it the fact that you're cold-blooded or that you have anxiety? Why do we think you like
knows?
that holding that warm mug? But yeah,
perfect
something's
storm.
going on because why
Yeah,
anyone
yeah.
would need to drink a glass of hot water makes no sense. If there's not caffeine in it, then what's the
100%.
point?
I do it all the time. I
It's
order
good
it.
for your body.
I order it in restaurants.
Same. I
Yeah.
had it yesterday.
Yeah.
And it was like 100 degrees, and I ordered hot water.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was like, do you want a little lemon?
Yeah, always
If
a
you
little lemon.
if you like, yeah.
Always a little lemon.
So in addition to people buying Life in Five Senses, which I strongly recommend, also they should listen to you on Happier, your podcast with your sister.
Yeah.
Feel free to check out both those things. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. Time has moved suspiciously quickly, which is always, to me, the signal of a good interview. We've been here for 4.5 hours now. What a pleasure talking to you, and what a fun book you've written. And I appreciate your endless pursuit of this topic.
Oh, well, thanks so much. I had so much fun talking to you too.
Oh, good, good, good. I'm glad you wore such a loud green dress because you're here to talk about the senses. If you showed up in something largely forgettable, I feel like you'd be betraying your own work.
I know. I felt like I had to bring it on.
And now my favorite part of the show, the fact check with my soulmate, Monica Padman. Okay, go.
Okay.
This is going to be an unedited fact check. So, because of schedules,
Yeah.
this is about as close as we get to live.
That's right. And you always want it to be live, and now we've done it.
Well, and you know why?
Uh-oh.
What?
Well, it's Thursday morning right now.
I already have something I want to edit out.
What?
You're not going to like it.
What?
I often have to edit out that sound.
What sound?
You're spitting.
Spitting? Okay. Well, I'll do it away from microphone.
Okay.
Yeah. Now back to live. The issue with live. What? You
No,
wanna start?
no, it's fine. I'm scared. No, go. Back to live.
Well, because Stern does that show live.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
High
It's
wire
3 or
act.
4 hours straight,
Yeah.
super entertaining, no air,
Yeah.
and flying.
Yeah.
So the fact that we edit is a bit of a cheat. You know, it's
Sure.
Yeah,
If we're making him the person.
Yes, we're comparing the radio show to the podcast.
Yeah.
Which, they're kind of the same thing. So I don't mind. I like the challenge
Okay.
because I think it gets us closer to that.
Okay.
All right. So you just flew in. Mm-hmm. Yes, your arms are exhausted.
Yeah, I flew in.
What time did you
From
leave the
home.
house?
I left the house at 7:30 Eastern.
Okay.
So that's 4:30 Pacific.
Pacific time, yes.
Yeah. And
Seven-
it's 1:30 right now Pacific.
So then what time was your flight? 9?
It was at 10.
10? That's not terrible. And who drove you? Ashok? Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. And how was your day with him yesterday?
It was nice. We all went to a nice dinner.
Where?
It's called Kimball House.
Okay, in Duluth.
No, it's in Decatur.
Okay.
And it was delicious.
It was.
Yeah, it was fun. It was good. It was a good little break home.
Did Neil join you guys for dinner?
Yes.
He did. So it was the 4 of you.
Yeah.
That's lovely. That must make your parents so happy.
I think so.
Yes. When I When my children's are 35 and 27, if they want to go out to eat
Yeah.
with me, I'll be delighted.
You're going to have a 35-year-old and a 27-year-old.
In theory. I mean,
That
they'll-
means you're going to have another kid to have that age gap.
well,
Because yours are going to
yeah.
be 35 and 34.
That's true. So let's say they're 35 and 33. Whatever. In their 30s of
Yeah.
both children,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying. Adult
sure.
children joining you for dinner is a flattering occasion for
I think
parents.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they have choice. You have a choice. You don't have to go home. You don't have to ever talk to them again.
No, that does not feel like an option.
Although it is. People do that.
People do that. I don't think there's ever been one Indian person who's ever done that.
Then's been excommunicated from their family. There has to be.
I don't think so.
There's been betrayal and
Yeah, but they
backstabbing.
still do it.
They just sweep it under the rug.
Yep. I think it's cultural. Yeah.
Well, I'm just back from Miami.
Yes, you are. You got back late last night?
Late last night, and I guess the event that wouldn't have been reported was I left for the airport at 4:30 a.m. to go to Miami.
Yeah.
I had a 6:30 flight out of LAX.
Yeah.
And I rode my motorcycle.
Yeah.
For many reasons, I don't have to pay for parking. Also, when I land, I can be home in 30 minutes.
Faster.
It's worth it ultimately for me. It's not pleasant riding a motorcycle at 4:30 in the morning on the way to the airport because it was like 49 degrees or something. But I'm like, whatever, I'll get over this. It'll be half hour discomfort, and then it's so much easier.
Yeah.
About 6 miles from home, I'm driving on the 101, approaching downtown, and then torrential downpour rain at 4:50 a.m.
That isn't good.
And I'm just going, what is happening? Like,
Yeah.
that's not supposed to happen in California. And what timing? And it wasn't in the forecast.
Unexpected.
It felt cruel. It felt like,
yeah.
you know,
punishment.
there was a plot against me.
Yeah.
In fact, as you'll find out, the sim was very much at work this weekend for me.
Okay.
So anyways, I get completely drenched. There's even hail at some point when I'm directly downtown. And it rains for most of the rest of the ride to LAX. And that means I'm going much slower than I had anticipated going, which means I get there with just about 50 minutes before my flight. I'm not too worried. I am soaking wet. I run inside. I get in line. And I'm flying first. So I get into the premier line, which I'm assuming will go quicker and there'll be more agents. Well, I'm sitting there and there's probably 7 people ahead of me. And I'm noticing of the 3 people up there, one of them's helping like a band load.
Oh.
So it's this cargo container after. So they're gone. Then there's the one gal who's helping someone. And then there's I guess a manager standing in front of a computer, but like just on her phone or whatever, hanging.
Okay.
And I'm looking over at the main cabin line. And it's moving really fast. And I keep debating whether to bounce out of this line or not. And this is like, I guess people on the Titanic who just like go down while eating a fancy meal. Ignoring.
know.
Yeah, there's something like I'm buying into some weird
Elitist shit.
that's
Yep.
preventing me from going over there. 'Cause I'm buying into the notion that I've paid more so I will get better service
Exactly.
despite observing
reality.
much better service.
Are you worried you're going to have to take your shoes off or something?
What do you mean? No, I'm just trying to check in for the flight.
Oh, right. But are you worried that's going to like derail your whole...
Well, here's what happens.
Okay.
Every time I'm convinced I need to go over there, I convince myself to stay because
Sure.
I'm going to lose my place there,
Yes.
and then blah blah blah. But every time I do that, I clock who was last in line.
Yeah.
When I make that decision, and then time after time, I watch that person get up and get serviced. I just can't. I'm like paralyzed with decision fatigue. I don't know
Wow.
whether to get out of the line or not. I stay in the line, which was regrettable.
Okay.
By the time I get up there, I've been in that line for 20 minutes, and there's just 6 or 7 people in front of me.
Okay.
And she says, "We can't check your bag. It's too late."
What?
Yeah, it's too late. We won't get it on the aircraft. And I
Oh my God.
I'm on Charlie's flight. B, I have all the recording equipment. We're going to the Formula One and we're there with press passes to interview people. So I'm like, I can't go without the bag because it has all the equipment. And I can't miss this flight or I'm going to miss practice, blah, blah, blah. They're like, well, you can be on the 11:30. I've already woken up at 4 to get there, right?
Oh my God. This is a thing?
Yes. And I...
Oh no. Oh no.
No, I never get mean. Is
Wait
that
a
what
minute.
you...
This is a ding, ding, ding
Why?
for Armchair Anonymous this week.
The
It's
TSA.
This is
Yeah, but
a
it wasn't.
situation
This was just
at the
the
airport.
staff at the ticketing counter.
Still
So
close enough.
I'm like, I start to say like, oh no, I got to be on that flight. I'm trying to explain to them the reasons why, and the woman that was the only one working that was helping, who I had approached, she kind of goes to the boss like, do you think we could? She's like, no, you can't. You missed it. And I'm like, I know, I'm so sorry, but I have been in line for 20 minutes. I really was here in time. That's why we say 2 hours.
Oh boy.
So then it became about 2 hours. And then the closest I can relate it to was being in high school when you'd have a substitute teacher and you'd go too far and they were trying to send you to the principal's office and you just beg. You would simply beg for 12 minutes, please don't send me to the principal. If you do, I'm going to get kicked out. And if I get kicked out again, then I'm going to get expelled. And then I'm going to have to, all this stuff.
Oh my.
That's my most recent memory of straight begging.
Okay.
Because let me also add, begging was off the table in my house. My mother did not play that game. Like I'd have friends go, hey, you want to spend the night? And I go, yeah, let me ask my mom. Can I spend the night at Trevor's house? No. And I go, oh, she said no. And Trevor would go like, ask her again, beg her.
Yeah.
Because that did work for every other kid.
Yeah.
That was off the table in my house. You asked one time, that was the answer for life.
Yeah.
By the way, I believe in that policy and that's how I'm raising my kids. There's just no begging.
Okay.
Okay, so I wasn't begging in the house a lot, but I was begging at school a lot to get out of trouble.
Okay.
Well, I was back there. I was begging them, and the manager just did not want to do it. I don't know if she just started realizing, like, he's not going anywhere. So anyways, she gets on a walkie-talkie reluctantly, and she calls, I guess, the ground crew. And this guy answers, yeah, hi, this is so-and-so from... Could we get a bag on the Miami flight still? Yeah, of course. I can hear it over the walkie-talkie.
Okay. He said,
Yeah.
of course.
Yes. So I was too relieved at that moment to even be upset that they were that unwilling to make that CB call. Anyways, I got on.
Wow.
Okay, go down there. Great weekend. Really funny. I told you, we're terrible at it. We're so bad. We're wandering around the track trying to get interviews. We can't figure out how to talk to anybody. It's very, very clear we're not going to be able to talk to anybody. We feel like complete failures. Then we're laughing at how bad we're doing at it. What a waste of these passes it was. Blah, blah, blah. Sunday, out of thin air, I get to talk to Toto Wolff and then immediately after Christian Horner, which was so unforeseen. We were saying, the simulation's so brilliant. It made it really miserable to get there. I fucked up. And then we did a terrible job all to get this beautiful gift on Sunday of these two little sound bites from Toto Wolff and Christian. So that was really fun. Then I go with Charlie to Key West for 2 nights, which was incredibly fun. Fly home, drive from Key West to Miami yesterday. That's like a 4-hour drive. Then get on the flight. That's a 5-hour flight. Land, and I got to bring the kids to school early in the morning. So I'm like really trying to rush. Bag takes forever. Who cares? Get out to the motorcycle. And I had worn a big jacket that had gotten soaked. But I'm like, oh, it's 5 days ago.
Yeah.
That thing's...
Oh, no.
I open up the top case of my motorcycle. And so the jacket's still completely soaked. My gloves are soaked. And it has soaked my helmet just by being in the same box now. So everything's wet. I also can't ride home in a T-shirt last night at 11 because it's also 50 degrees and it's just too cold. So I put on the wet jacket and the wet gloves and the wet helmet. And then I rode home.
You probably would have been better off in the T-shirt.
Well, I had to wear gloves and I had to wear the helmet. And the helmet was wet and the gloves were wet. And I just, wind-wise, I was like, maybe it'll be like a wetsuit. They're like, yeah, it's wet, but it'll get that little layer between my body and it.
Ooh.
It was all manageable. I did it, but it's not the surprise I was looking for when I opened up my top case to get my shit out.
Oh, that's a bummer. But you made it.
I made it. Yeah.
You're home.
I'm home.
You did it.
Delighted to be home. It was a great trip. It was a really great trip.
Good.
What were the highlights of Georgia?
what were the highlights? I saw Friends. I mean, there's not much to report. I don't want to waste our unedited fact check on non.
You did discover a photo of your mother
I did. I got
at
some
17.
I got some old photos from my grandparents' house.
Can you tell me you just found out she's actually 18 in the photo?
No. She is indeed 17.
Okay, well then I can't give any feedback.
No,
then.
you can't.
But don't you want me to?
No, she just looks so cute.
I see I'm not allowed to say that.
You could say she looks cute.
Can you? Okay. She looks so cute.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah, incredibly cute.
Yeah. It's so fun and weird to see your parents when they're little.
Younger than you currently.
Yes. Oh my God. There was a picture of my grandmother with the kids, but the kids are like 16. You know, my mom's like 16 in it or something.
Uh-huh.
And no, she would have been
18?
Yeah, something
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
she looks super hot.
And my grandmother's 38.
Oh wow. And
She's
your mother's
2
already
years older than me. And she has 3 majorly teenage children.
Yeah.
Oh, that was hard to swallow.
Was it?
Yeah.
Different times.
I know it was different times. It just felt like, oh my God, I'm running out of time.
You felt like you were running out of time.
Yeah.
Not that you were behind, just you're running out of time. Those are two distinctly different feelings.
Yeah, mainly I'm running out of time.
I think that's preferred.
Well, I don't think I'm behind because it's not like she did everything I did.
Exactly.
I can't make an exact comparison, but it was just a reminder that our bodies give out. And then some grandmas are 38.
Fall off a cliff.
Yeah.
Yeah. As we talked about with Nick
Braun?
Nick Braun, about the wildebeest gathering up on the riverbank, and then there's just a waterfall of wildebeest that fall over the bank because they're trying to avoid getting eaten by the crocodiles, and that was the analogy of your eggs. They have fallen off the bank.
Oh.
Yeah, and then the
I don't
alligator-
think we said that.
we did. I heard it.
I don't remember.
I don't remember that at
How
all.
much money do you want to bet? Because I just heard it.
Oh, boy.
I believe Dax though also, but I don't remember.
Yeah. Just heard it.
You said the wildebeest?
We were talking about your eggs falling off
We
a
did
cliff.
talk about my eggs. I remember that.
Yeah.
You think the word wildebeest.
Oh, no, I know for sure. I would bet my whole life on it.
Okay.
So fun check-in, I guess.
I guess. All right. Well, we have a quiz to take.
Oh, Jesus, then let's take it.
Yeah, because this is for Gretchen Rubin.
Oh, right, and she has a quiz.
She has 2 quizzes, but we'll just take one.
Okay.
Okay, but really quick, I found out the book series that her sister wrote, it was like a teen book series. She's like, I can't remember the name. And we were saying Babysitter's Club. We were throwing out some stuff. It was Sweet Valley High.
Oh, in the Sweet Valley Twins?
Yes, I
Yeah.
loved those books.
And her sister wrote those?
No, she said her sister wrote some pulp fiction for some young adult book series. And so
Okay.
it was Sweet Valley High. Okay, so let me pull up the quiz. Now, this quiz is the 5 senses quiz.
Okay. And what's it going to tell us? What sense we value the most?
No, you're most neglected.
Oh, okay.
Think about the last week. How often has each sense brought you moments of engagement or pleasure? Okay, so it's seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. What's most often in your last week?
In my last week,
Yeah.
man, I had a cornucopia of sensory pleasures.
Yeah.
So my hearing for sure, because I was listening to the loud Formula One cars.
And that gave you pleasure?
Oh, absolutely.
It
I
did.
fucking love that noise. And the
Okay.
crowds cheering and the cars whipping by.
Okay.
I also heard tons of beach birds that
Oh, that's fun.
that Pavlovian response of I'm on vacation. Waves lapping at the shore. I was hearing that a lot when I
Okay.
had my door wall open in the hotel.
So hearing seems like it was most
it was
often.
a big one this week.
Okay, let me move hearing.
But sight, too. I was looking at all the beautiful
Oh God, this is
water.
not.
This is a bad.
Sliders.
This is slidings.
Uh-oh.
So
You
it's
pick like a percentage for each one.
oh boy, this might not be a good one to do unedited.
We like ABCD. So you got to give a percentage for each.
Why don't
sense?
you just tell me the order? Or okay, hearing I'm going to do 100.
Okay,
What about seeing?
100.
Oh, but the
Yeah.
same?
Yeah, because I'm seeing Toto Wolff. I'm seeing the race cars. I'm seeing the
I know.
track
Okay,
and the
I don't think
fanfare.
it. Okay, I don't think it's just what you've used. It's,
No, it's pleasure.
I know, but I think you have to rank it. So of those.
Okay, sight, I'll go number 1.
Okay, sight is a little more than hearing. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
put hearing down even just a tiny bit on this.
Okay.
What about smelling?
Low on the
Low,
list.
okay.
Yeah, I'm 40.
Okay.
40%.
Taste.
I had a lot of great meals that made the
Okay.
trip really exciting.
Ooh,
yeah, I'd say
okay.
70%
Okay, but
taste.
not as good as hearing.
Right. Hearing was a very auditory experience.
Okay, what about touching?
Oh, I didn't
know,
get
you-
any touch.
But you love touch.
I love touch, but I didn't experience any.
Oh, then.
I touched myself once.
Ah, this
6
is
days.
unedited.
What? People touch themselves.
Oh my God.
I'm trying to give an honest answer. We're talking about the last week.
Sometimes when we do unedited, you can't be as honest as normal.
Okay.
That was Frito that said that.
No, it was Dax.
touch. I like to touch myself everywhere. My armpits, my shoulders, places no one touches.
Okay. So I'm going to say higher than smell,
Yeah.
but or no.
I just didn't have any.
Okay, you really
It's
want to
not my-
do last week.
I thought that was the
It
premise.
is, but it is. Okay, I'm moving on next.
Okay, great.
Okay. Oh, it's telling us to please
It asked if you
wait.
touched
Okay.
yourself in the last 6 days.
No. Oh, if you wanted to cheer yourself up, what would you be most likely to do? Okay, this is another slider. I'm going to read them all, okay?
Okay.
Listen to a favorite upbeat song.
Hmm.
Curl up under a soft blanket or pet a dog or cat.
Hmm.
That's all one.
Wow. Okay.
Wear or use something in a great color. Fix yourself some comfort food. Light a scented candle or take a deep breath of fresh outdoor air.
First one.
Okay, first one's 100.
Yeah.
Upbeat song. How do you want me to do curl up under a soft blanket?
That's not my style.
I know. I think you're
Yeah.
0 on that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay. Wear or use something in a great color?
I don't know. 5.
Oh,
5 out of 10. Not 5 out of 100. 50%.
don't make me change
50%.
this
I don't know what you're
50?
Is this out of 100 or out of 10?
I don't know. It's
Okay.
it's
okay,
nothing.
so half. How about
Okay,
that?
half. Okay. Half seems high for that.
Oh, geez.
Okay. Fix yourself some comfort food.
Yes, a 7. out
I
of 10.
think that's high, yeah. Light a scented candle or take a deep breath of fresh outdoor air.
a 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
A little bit higher than curl up under a soft blanket. Okay. Which is weird because I think the soft blanket thing is trying to tell you about touch.
Yeah, and I love touch, but
Yeah.
but if I'm being honest, I love human touch.
Right.
I don't know that I like sit on a couch.
But
and
you like
tactile
textures.
texture.
I
Sure.
have to burp when it's unedited.
Yeah, I'm a human being with a cough, I burp, I
I know, but
sneeze,
I edit all
fart.
that. They don't know about any of
Well,
that.
now this, well, that is one thing that Stern does nonstop is burp.
I know, but we're not.
I'm just telling you
Okay.
that the bar unedited accepts burps in the marketplace.
Okay, well, that's okay.
Okay.
Okay, if a friend invites you to a night out, what sounds like the most fun? Touring a spectacular light display? Taking a poetry class?
Hey, no thanks.
Experiencing
Pottery?
oh my God, pottery class. Good catch. Experiencing a sound bath, creating your own custom scent at a new shop, and going to a potluck dinner.
Okay, so I think I can jump ahead to this. I think what I've already know is that I'm prioritizing my sense of smell the least.
Because we have to take the whole.
Oh yeah, I will. I
Okay,
can see where
that's
this is
your-
going. But like, no,
Yes.
I'm not gonna ever. I will never in my life light a scented candle. And I think that's
You
going to
did.
pop up.
You've done it in here
If it
because
smells
it's
like
been stinky.
fucking chicken and horse shit in here, yes, I'll try to get a least offensive smell going. But never will I be sitting in a neutral room and think, I could really go for some vanilla
Right.
smell in here, something tropical.
So
And that was because a guest was coming too.
Exactly. I was actually happy to sit in the stinky chicken horseshit smell
Yeah.
until a guest came. And then I got vain,
you got self-conscious.
self-conscious.
Okay, creating your own custom. So that's 0.
Yeah.
Experiencing a sound
I
bath.
like the sound bath. I would give that a 6, and I would
Really?
give a light show 10 because I go to Descanso Gardens to see the light show.
Descanso.
Descansos.
Okay. Experiencing a sound bath. You like that a little.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
But what about the pottery class?
I would give that a 6.
Same as sound?
Yeah.
Okay. And then potluck dinner?
That's great. I'll go with an 8 there. I love
Oh,
taste.
great.
Yeah. I do.
Don't skip ahead to what you know it is, okay?
Okay.
Just play along,
All right.
unedited.
Okay.
If you were getting ready for the holidays, which activity would you be most likely to enjoy? Choosing holiday appropriate scented candles,
Yeah, 0.
greenery or flowers. Okay, that's greenery or flowers?
Well, I think that's implying smell, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, you're not supposed to do that.
Okay. No, 0.
Okay, 0. Designing the decorations?
Yes, high 10.
High.
Lights. Yeah, love lights.
Deciding the menu?
7. I do shit on a shingle. Yeah.
Okay. Creating a playlist?
That would be high. I go 7 on that too. I'm in
Okay.
charge of the Vince Guaraldi Christmas Peanuts soundtrack over Sonus. Sonus. Sonus is a great product.
Doing an activity to set the mood. Hang ornaments, carve pumpkins, light sparklers.
Really quick, can we take 1 second to acknowledge how hilarious it is? Was that once you introduce a time clock to something, it completely short circuits everything.
I know.
Like the relaxed nature that you and I normally
I
have
know.
a fact check has gone out the window
know.
of this very arbitrary notion of not editing. And it means nothing.
No, but it does.
But it does. You have to make it not. Or you sound insane, which is what we sound like right now.
I know, but it does because I know what comes out.
I know you do. I know.
Okay.
Yeah. I edit a show as well. And yeah, I totally get it. But I want to acknowledge how funny it is that I just said sonus or whatever. I said sonus or whatever I just
You
said.
always say crazy stuff. I don't think that has to do with this.
I could feel that it was this.
The peanuts also sounded like you said penis.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, I'm batting 20% with my diction right now.
That's
It's pretty funny.
Common and great and on brand. Okay, what about doing an activity to set the mood? That's hang ornaments, carve pumpkins, light sparklers. Not
Right?
really.
Yeah, 3.
Okay, that one for me is the highest.
Lighting sparklers.
Hanging ornaments and carving pumpkin, like doing all those things.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Monica, we're not editing. You have to read the next
Oh my
question.
God, you have.
What did you do? Did you fall asleep? Have you forgotten we're not editing?
Stop it! It takes a second for it to go.
Oh, you were waiting for it to load?
Yes.
Okay. And in that big valley of nothing, I took a big sip out of my, what are these called, Rob? Cream top. And I had cream top muffin all over my mustache.
really
and
did.
Then yeah. Would you, in preparing for Christmas, like to look like Santa Claus? Give yourself a big bushy white mustache?
No, because I don't like doing an accent or dressing up or anything.
Character work.
Yeah, you're.
And
yeah.
then you think this mustache is character work?
Yeah, and I think I forgot because we're unedited that people can't see you, so I thought you made a mistake, but you didn't.
Yeah, you were worried you were going to have to cut that out, but
Yeah.
there's nothing to cut out.
Okay. Ooh, what experience would be most likely to make you feel a wave of nostalgia? Getting a whiff of a place where you once spent a lot of time.
Yeah, it's a 10 out of 10.
Okay, that's a 10. What about finding a stack of photos from the past? Ding, ding, ding.
Oh, 8.
Okay. Hearing a favorite song from a certain time.
How nostalgic does that make me? There's the recognition that I know this song. I'd say 6, 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
Eating a snack that you haven't tasted in years.
Oh, that's powerful.
It is.
Yeah. Can we go with an 8 on that as
Yeah.
well?
Because that's like our chicken sandwich Burger King.
Yeah, the rectangle sandwich.
Yeah. Holding an item, blanket, t-shirt, beloved stuffed animal that you treasured.
Nope. 2.
Okay. All right, I wonder how long this is.
We're at like 80%.
Oh, great.
Okay.
80% of the way done? Oh, okay, great.
If you stayed at a fancy hotel, which arrival gift would you be happiest to receive?
These are very creative questions.
They are. I love Gretchen.
Yeah. It's like storytelling.
Yeah. Free admission to live music in the hotel bar. Okay.
Okay.
We'll come back to that one.
Yeah.
A luxurious robe and slippers to wear during your stay.
Okay. You would love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a problem because I'd only like it because it was a thing
Oh.
that I could like take home.
Okay. Keepsake.
Yeah, I like.
Souvenir. Tangible artifacts.
I do, and
But you also like to wear you like to take a bath and wear a robe.
I don't love to wear a robe. I have like 5 robes, and I never wear them.
Yeah, me either. I've been given them over the years, and I love the idea of it.
Same.
But I'm like, when do I put this on? It just doesn't fit into my schedule at all. And would I be nude under it?
I know.
Because if I'm going to put underwear on, then I'm just
Gonna
I'm
put
gonna
clothes
I'm
on.
I'm going to put my sleep pants on.
I think you're supposed to be.
You know, I wear a
nude.
sleep slack.
Sleep sack.
I do. A very thin sleeping slacks.
Oh, you mean your underwear when you sleep?
I don't wear underwear, but I wear sleeping slacks.
Wait, tell me what is? Oh, you mean
like
MeUndies?
a MeUndies lounge pants.
Yeah. Sure. Yes.
And there's some other brands in there. I do love MeUndies, but I have a couple different sleep slacks. And because my legs will sweat.
Sure.
Like if I lay on my side, which I mostly sleep on my sides.
Yeah.
Then my thighs laying on each other. My big fat thighs.
And they get sweaty.
And they'll get sweaty. So I have to wear a sleep slack. I've figured out.
Interesting.
I did it forever. I just slept in boxers for most of my life.
Yeah.
Then I switched to MeUndies. But I like to give my testicles and my penis a little free air time.
Sure.
Without being so encumbered. Okay, all that to say, where does a robe fit into that program? It's an intermediate
it's for
item
the morning. Like people wear them in the morning.
to go downstairs when it's chilly. That kind of makes sense. But you're already you're in your jammies, and then you put a top. It's a top coat at that point.
I don't understand it either.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a 0 for you.
Yeah,
A collection of beautifully photographed postcards of the area.
that's pretty nice. I give that a 6.
Yeah, I think I like that.
Yeah.
An assortment of fine chocolates.
You know,
Let's
if I allowed
pretend they're
my
gluten free.
right, let's pretend I eat sugar and stuff.
Okay.
But ding, ding, ding. I shockingly 6 days of eating out at restaurants, I didn't fuck up.
Oh,
I didn't eat
wow.
gluten. I didn't eat eggs. I didn't eat any of the things I don't eat, which would include sugar.
Okay.
And I got on that flight home yesterday, and it was like, it's a long flight from Miami. It's 5 and change, and we sat on the runway, blah, blah, blah. Something happened where when they offered hot fudge sundae, I said, yeah, let's do that. She said, would you like chocolate, caramel, or strawberry sauce? And I said, yes, please.
Oh my God, you got them all?
I got all 3, and it was outrageously delicious. There was so much sauce in there. It was like perfectly 50-50 sauce and ice cream. It was delicious. And I made it all the way till then. But I did have
That's
that.
good.
Yeah.
Did you ask if they had Cherry Garcia?
No, I didn't ask because I know when they have Cherry Garcia, they just offer it to you in those little cute one-offs. This was
Weird's happening. I'm just realizing. I'm only offered ice cream desserts when I'm on flights where you are also on them. Something's
you know what I think it is?
something's up.
I think I have an explanation for that.
Okay.
You and I have generally been on very long flights. Like most of the flights you and I have been on together have been to New York. I'd say first, if we had to pick one destination, we've most been on planes for.
Yes.
And then also we had like a long ass flight to go to that island we went to, whatever it was.
Turks and Caicos.
The point is, I think that comes out in the service when it's a long flight and they can do the dinner and then they have a full dessert thing. Because I haven't been offered that in a long time, but I think it
Really?
was because I was on a 5-hour flight.
But I came back from DC. That was extremely long.
Excruciatingly.
Yeah, and there was no sundaes or Cherry Garcias
What was
or cookies. Even.
who was the flight provider?
Delta?
Delta.
That's
Okay,
what
this was American yesterday.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I don't.
I'm not going to say who I flew out on because obviously I had a hard time. I don't want anyone to think I'm.
Will you mouth it? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But the point is I had a hot foot Sunday.
Okay.
Okay, back to the quiz.
Back to the quiz. Okay. So what do you want to say about fine
Oh,
chocolates?
yeah, I love it.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not going to eat it, but I love it.
So higher than the photographs? Because you're not going to take those postcards home. I know you.
I know. I don't want anything. This also happened on the weekend. Sorry to keep bringing it back to the weekend, but you collect weird stuff. Like you get some hats and you get this and you get that.
Yeah.
And I was just looking at all this stuff that was accumulating in my hotel room, and I'm like, my goal on a trip is to come back with less stuff than I have, not more.
Oh my God.
Right. We have
so
opposite
different.
agendas.
Yeah. Okay. A set of sachets made from fragrant herbs.
I don't even know what that is. What's a sachet?
It's like a little pouch, and it makes things smell good.
Oh, potpourri. Potpourri.
Yeah, but it would be like travel. Like you could keep it in your suitcase.
0.
You don't care at
Yeah.
all.
10
Okay.
10 out of 10.
Wait, what about the live music in the hotel bar? We never.
This is
decided
really,
that.
really tricky. Is the live music Steely Dan? Then 10. Is the live music like the singer-songwriter, boozy captain of a small vessel? That I don't know.
Thank you for making up a name and not saying a real name that I
would
would have
never.
had to edit out.
I wouldn't.
Okay.
Pro
That
every
was my
music.
dilemma too. When trying to
Yeah,
think,
is it
'cause
bad music in the lobby or great
I would
music?
assume hotel music is not going to be great.
I know.
That is
maybe
so
we shouldn't
rude.
assume that.
Yeah, that
Well,
is so rude.
But anyone that you would want to see is probably playing
At a bar down the street.
that's going to cost money.
This is costing money. That's why it's a gift. It's free admission. It's
I guess
something
if-
that you would have had to pay
Okay,
for.
so it's the hottest hotel in town with the hottest venue
We
in
should say
town.
the Ace Hotel because they have the theater at Ace Hotel
Right.
connected to it.
Yeah.
And they get good shows there.
oh my
Okay, so in
fucking
that
God.
scenario, your computer just died?
Yes.
It's a perfect ending. It's actually a absolutely perfect ending.
I'm doing it. I'm doing
no.
it. I've got it in tandem over here.
Oh, you've been adding those
Wait,
same
why
results?
why are
well,
you?
For this
I-
exact reason, we
no,
need
no,
to.
no.
We need
There's
to.
no.
I've been
For
answering.
redundancy.
I've been answering for myself, and I was going to ask at the end if we think this is gendered because I've been on the same page with you. for
Okay,
almost all of them.
interesting. Okay, interesting. So, do you want to take us through the end of the quiz, or was that the last
Sure.
question?
No, I think I got two more.
Okay.
If you were talking to an expert, whose expertise would you find most interesting? A musician who scores music for movies and television. You want to answer that one, or are we going to go?
Well, don't I want to hear all my options before I
Sure.
pick an order?
An artist who explores optical illusions.
Oh, that's kind of intriguing.
A designer who decides the weight and texture of well-known consumer products. A scent designer who creates unexpected naturalistic smells. 10. A cookbook writer who recreates food from the past.
Okay. Definitely the optical illusions. I find it so fun to watch to see an optical illusion.
So that's like an 8,
That's a 10.
10. All right. What about
And
musician?
then film composer probably is an 8.
Okay.
And then, that scent is 0.
0, yeah. So you got designer who decides the weight and texture of well-known consumer products.
That sounds a little boring to me. I'll give that a 3.
3.
Yeah.
Cookbook writer.
Cookbook writer. They're also presumably a chef. I'll give that a 5. Okay. All right. Monica's now gotten herself a stinger. She's got
That was
power.
it, but I
I don't
need...
know if that works.
Well, sometimes Wobby Wob, he really
Well,
is protective about
I-
plugging things in and out.
that one works. I've recently moved it to your outlet because the kegerator was on a power strip, and that power strip moves sometimes.
Normally, I'm
Okay.
sorry. I would normally would have edited all of this out. Oh
Yeah,
my God.
but
Move
here
on.
we
Move
go.
on. Move on. Do the next one.
That was it. I have
That
to
was
put my
great.
email in now to get our results.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Let's see how quickly.
We'll figure out. But I guess I'm feeling like it's going to go in order of sight, sound, taste, touch, scent.
Okay, your most neglected sense is touching.
Oh, touching. Okay.
And there's a lot of writing.
Okay, big paragraph.
Yeah.
Okay.
Consider these ways to awaken your appreciation for this neglected sense.
Okay, I will.
Have fun with your sense of touch. Usually shop online, go to a store.
Ooh.
Try cryotherapy or visit a sensory deprivation tank.
Ooh.
Fold a paper airplane or origami.
Oh, that is pleasurable.
Run your fingers across tree bark, seashells, a glass bottle, or a wicker basket.
Okay.
Visit stores that inspire your hands, gardening store, hardware store, music store.
Great.
Seek out interesting textures in your daily life.
Well,
Well, we're going to have to call it.
That's not what you thought.
That's not what you would have, meaning I would have guessed smell was the lowest.
Yeah.
It's curious because I do feel like it consistently got the least.
And because you do like touch.
I do. I really like touching human beings.
And I feel like you like textures, you like clicking.
I do like clicking, yes.
Yeah. So
You answered pretty low, though, on a lot of the touching ones because it was...
You're right.
what did you get pleasure in the last week doing?
They never ask if you touch yourself or touch someone else's body. So it wasn't the kind of
That's
touching
not
that
what-
night.
Mine had the masturbation question. I don't know.
It did.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
that is not what she's after, you know.
Right.
She wants the actual sensation of touch. Is not probably the same as what you're getting from touching a person.
Or like what is
'Cause
eroticism?
That's exactly.
Okay.
And that's more chemicals, I think.
Sure.
Oxytocin.
Sexual.
Not necessarily.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Like hugging.
Yeah, no, you're right. I hug a
the
whole host of
kids.
people, yeah, without any sexual energy.
Okay.
All right.
This is really fun. The hidden arrow in the FedEx.
Did you finally see it?
Yes.
Okay.
I cannot believe
You
I've
weren't
gone
looking.
my whole life without noticing that.
That was the first time you had experience?
ever.
Really?
I didn't even know about that. I didn't even know.
Oh.
And I felt stupid, but it felt good.
Yeah. And now did you find every time you see a FedEx truck or because they litter the streets.
They do. They're
They're
really
everywhere.
Do. But then there's more. Like I did a sort of deep dive on
Famous logos.
on logos that have hidden stuff in them.
Okay.
Well, you know about the Amazon one, right? Because we've talked about that.
What is it?
The arrow also in Amazon is from the A to the Z.
Oh, that's
so it's
smart.
like everything from A to Z.
Oh, I didn't put that together. That's clever.
Yeah, someone told me about that.
Soup to nuts, A to Z.
Okay, well, on this unedited,
Yeah.
I can't find it.
You can't find the logos.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Wait, maybe I put a I didn't.
Oh,
I didn't put a hyperlink.
that's okay.
But I did do a hyperlink on this one.
Can you remember any of them off the top of your head?
Yeah.
Amazon.
Toblerone.
Okay, the triangle chocolate.
Yep. There's a bear, a hidden bear on it. And that hidden bear has to do with the region of where the
Switzerland?
chocolate is made.
Okay. It's known for its bears.
I'm going to look it up real quick
Okay.
because it's worth it.
Okay.
Hidden logos. Hidden logos.
From sentientanimals.org.
Oh, did you know? Okay, yeah, hold on. Oh, one I remember was Toyota. This is cool.
Yeah.
Okay. It spells Toyota.
It
Like,
spells.
Okay, T.
Uh-huh.
Like, if you take-
Y-O.
Oh.
T-Y and the O.
This is a T.
Yeah.
That's an O.
Uh-huh.
This is a Y. That's an O. T. That's an A. So within the logo itself, all the letters can be spelled.
Wow.
That's cool.
Good job, Toyota. I want to know how much of this was intentional and how much is just a happy
know.
accident that people figured out later.
I know, but I want it to be
It's
real.
like symbolism that people find in things.
Well, did you know about Baskin Robbins?
31 flavors, tell me.
It's 31. The pink is 31.
Oh my gosh, I didn't see that.
Yes.
Right, so just to refresh people's memories, now on the Baskin Robbins, it just says B and R, Baskin
Yes.
Robbins. But the B is half blue and half red, and the R is half
Pink,
blue.
pink,
Pink, and black or whatever. But blue. And then the inside, there's a 31. I did
Yes,
not notice that.
That's a fun one.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of blue, black,
Okay.
gold, white dress. Okay, because we talked about that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of articles about why that happened. And it's about the way we perceive light and the camera, because it was with the iPhone.
Uh-huh.
And it's weird. It's like if you are used to, let me find it. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, I found it. Okay.
Okay.
It's up. I just have so many tabs.
Yeah.
Okay. So some people are used to different lighting conditions than others. This is long. Should I read it? On an unedited? I'm going to do it.
Good. Yeah.
Okay. People's perceived color is also informed by their perception of lighting. And the image of the dress taken on a cell phone contained a lot of uncertainty in terms of lighting conditions. Was it taken inside or outside? This matters because it implies artificial or natural light. Was the dress illuminated from the front or the back? This matters because if it was backlit, it would be in a shadow, otherwise not. The brain cannot be accused of epistemic modesty. It is well known that in situations like this, where it faces profound uncertainty, it confidently fills in the gaps in knowledge by making assumptions. Usually, its assumptions are based on what it has most frequently encountered in the past.
This is AI. This is exactly how AI works.
Yeah.
It looks like the most high percentage pattern and plugs that in.
But that's what our brain is doing.
Yes, our brain is
But
AI.
what's fascinating is that we're not all the same, obviously.
Well, right. We A, see different patterns.
Yeah.
And B, we have different frequencies. So the percentage that we're predicting at is different.
Yeah. Okay, for instance, if the sensory information is more uncertain, observers will estimate object speeds to be, I just remembered we were unedited and I got nervous,
Yeah, you're.
to be slower than they actually are. Presumably because slow objects, I don't want to talk about slow objects.
yeah.
Okay.
We're here to learn about the stress.
As the illumination conditions are impossible to clearly assess in the dress image, people make assumptions. Different people do this in differing ways, which is what causes the different interpretations of color. Thanks to 13,000 people who took surveys on what they saw when they saw the dress and also compiled other information about how they generally perceive the photo and the world. Remember, the dress is actually blue and black,
Okay.
though most people saw it as white and gold, at least at first. If you assumed the dress was in a shadow, you were much more likely to see it as white and gold. Why? Because shadows overrepresent blue light. Mentally subtracting short wavelength light, which would appear bluish from an image, will make it look yellowish. So there's all this stuff here. But anyway, that's interesting.
Incredibly interesting. It's like that optical illusion I sent you.
Yes.
Where even when it's explained to you, your brain will never see it because it has an interpretation of what a window is.
Yep.
And it's a window spinning. And your brain will just make sense of the physics.
Based on what it knows.
What it knows about physics and windows.
Yeah.
And it precludes you from ever seeing the reality of it.
What a metaphor.
Right. When I saw that, I immediately said, yeah, when you're telling people with trauma to just, don't live in your past, blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's pretty simple. That's a simple statement.
I know.
And go try to look at this optical illusion and not know what a window looks like. You
Yes.
can't.
I know that's something my therapist and I talk a lot about, is not like what people should be doing or what we want. It's like, what can they do versus what can't they do? Some of us, we all have things we can't do. We have actual limitations.
Right.
And it's knowing that about people that I think makes, that's helpful. It's helpful to know, like, this person just actually can't do that. So stop trying to get them to do that.
Yes.
They're
and
not going to because of their history and X, Y, and Z.
I know. And we're intention junkies. So it's like, really all we want to know is someone's giving it 100% for us.
Yeah.
And if we find out 100% for them is slower and less reliable, fine. They're trying that's all we're really looking for.
Yes. Well, and you can then make decisions based on people's limitations. You can say, well, that's then not a person I can be around, or I need to limit my time with them or whatever. but there's a lot more empathy around it. They're not choosing to not do this; they just can't do it.
Yeah.
And I don't have to engage, but
Well, mostly I don't have to take it personal.
or take it personal.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, nails on a chalkboard.
All right. I hit her with the theory of that the sound makes me think of what it would feel like.
Oh, you're gonna
And then
love this.
And then I have a hunch that's what everyone thinks, that their nails are going to break.
Right, that was a good theory.
Okay. Not the case, but here it is.
But this is this source is NPR.
Oh, finally. One
I
that
know.
I blindly trust.
I love when I get NPR as
Yeah.
a source because I know you'll trust me. Finally.
That and Frontline.
Okay. He said, this guy on NPR said the most obnoxious frequencies of the noise are amplified by the shape of the human ear canal. So it actually has to do with the shape of our ears that make that particular sound. There's, again, like lots of science stuff in here.
About vectors and quadrants and
Open
vortexes.
ear gain and the pitch, the very specific pitch, and the shape of our ear. It like
Exacerbates.
thank you. God, I would have cut that.
I know.
It
But you can't.
exacerbates the sound.
Well, the whole time crunch is what's exacerbating all of the other stuff.
Anyway, so it's the shape of our ear canal.
Okay.
Mixed with the frequency. It's a perfect storm of situations with this specific sound
Uh-huh.
that causes that to be universally repellent.
God, don't think of your fingers on that chalkboard?
I do.
That's what gives me the heebie-jeebies.
But some people have it most people have it actually, when sometimes chalk does it if you do it in a very specific way.
that high pitch.
Yeah. And so.
It always happens to like a professor who's already nervous as well. And then they start writing on the chalkboard and they go too flat with the chalk and it makes that noise. And then you're like, oh my gosh, now they're making that noise and they were already nervous.
Oh, it's
and
so
now
embarrassing.
it's too much.
Do you think it's because they're unedited?
Yeah,
Yeah.
largely. Yeah.
I think so. All right, let's see.
That's a Seinfeld take. That life in general could go for a good edit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is. One thing that happened in Atlanta that I do want to say.
Here we go.
I ran into the Armchair Anonymous pooped his pants at work guy.
Yes.
Yes.
And he specifically destroyed the bathroom, right? It did not all stay in his pants,
No.
as I recall. And then he just left. Remember,
Yeah.
he went back to his house
Yeah.
and got and regrouped. And he had said to you, if you're ever in Duluth, my wife wants to drink wine with you.
Yeah.
And then by crazy coincidence, you ran into the wife on a previous trip,
I did at Crate and Barrel.
Crate and Barrel. And how was that exchange?
Great. She just came up to me and said, my husband
You
was on
interviewed my
Armchair
husband.
Anonymous. Yeah. And then this time I was at a wine bar and she was there. She's working on her dissertation. Shout out.
At a wine bar?
Yeah.
That
That's my
feels-
style.
Okay.
Yeah.
Get like a good 12 minutes of work done before the buzz kicks
No,
in.
you can work perfectly on a 15% buzz. It actually does something great for your brain. That's science.
It probably makes you optimistic
Yeah.
and takes away that voice that's telling you you're never going to memorize this or you're never going to write this or you're right.
Yeah. I also think what it does is you're doing something you like while doing something you don't. So at least one thing is happening that you're of your choosing.
Right. Your preferred thing.
Yeah. But the problem is then you have to stop because then you will
Then
have
you're
drank
drunk.
too much.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't know when to stop.
Right.
Well, no, I would edit that out.
Did you get shit-faced on this trip?
No,
Never.
I didn't.
Even a little more tipsy than you would have normally have gotten? When you're with your old friends, you don't tip them back a little quicker?
Not quicker.
Longer?
We did
deeper?
get tipsy at that wine bar because they started to give us a lot of wine, which was so nice and it was so good. But not too tipsy.
Okay. Not more than normal,
I didn't drive.
you think?
Can't remember. It's all a blur.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. She brought up odor fatigue, and that was a ding, 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 because we had just done a fact check on Paris Hilton about her scents, and
Her
we
cleanser.
said nose fatigue, odor fatigue, and we were going to come up with a name. We never did. Because remember, you said sniffer, but it didn't really make sense.
It didn't work.
Yeah.
I wanted
We
it to be
scrapped that.
swifter
Yeah.
and sniffing somehow, but it doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work, but that's
Yeah.
okay.
All right, I'll try to mull it over and have a good one for you. But I know if I sit here and just spitball, think tank it, you're gonna need to edit, you know.
gonna get
And it's a
inappropriate.
bad, it's
Yeah.
a bad prompt.
I agree.
Like, come up with a great name for this product.
I know. It's really risky. We can't do it.
It's too high risk.
We can't do it.
So I'd rather just tell you I love you and bid you of farewell.
I
and
love
I'm
you,
delighted
too.
you're home.
I'm delighted you're home. We're back in the attic. It feels like we've been gone a long time.
And I'm glad you never left, Rob.
Yeah, I've been here.
It feels good to know that we had a
Person on the ground.
mooring here in LA.
Yeah.
And I relied on Rob a lot while I was gone, you know.
Great.
Yeah, he's Johnny on the double.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, love you.